Alrighty then, are we live? I believe we are. There it is, yes, we're live. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Asmogan, and today this is not a GT necessarily related thing, nor is it, not sure what to call this. This is a thing I decided to do on the whim, on a whim, where I've been kind of like thinking and mulling over the future of tabletop wargaming, whether it pertains to my own tabletop wargame I'm developing, Warcraft Gothic, or the big heavy hitters of the industry and of the fandom, as we all know, of Age of Sigmar, Warhammer 40,000, BattleTech, etc., etc., etc. There's many games out there, many tabletop war games people participate in, some more so than others, some that are definitely going way more mainstream than others, some that people have never even heard of. But regardless, there is this genre that we all participate in, that we're all hobbyists of. Well, if you're coming to this stream, I would hope so. And it's just been, I've been mulling it over a lot lately. You know, what's the future of this hobby? What's the future of this community? The pros and cons to look forward to, the evolution of 3D printing and how that's going to affect the heavy hitters, how that's going to affect up-and-comers. What is the environment going to look like? The community aspect is definitely a big one lately. It's been a very heavy topic, actually, in particular, when we get into the community side of it, because there's been a lot of things that have caused the tabletop war gaming communities, whether we're looking at smaller or quote-unquote smaller, more concise ones like the 40k community, the Age of Sigmar community, the BattleTech community, or if we're looking at the entirety of the sphere, there is so much about tabletop wargaming in the community aspect that has been kind of, at best, I would say, testy lately. And there's just so much, I think, here to kind of unpack. And though me and Ludus on the GT podcast have discussed aspects about this very regularly, I know Arch Warhammer has discussed it on his own secondary channel, Archcast. He's discussed it with Kibbs. He's discussed it in private. I've discussed it and spoken about it with him in the past. I've spoken about it with other 40k enthusiasts and content creators over on Twitter, here on YouTube before. Kill Team Hungary and I have discussed things with Ludus, and I've even had discussions with people who are completely disconnected with the community and with the games and the hobby that we all enjoy, like Ace 1918. He is completely disconnected, at least as far as last time I spoke with him, was completely disconnected from this kind of stuff. And getting his perspective, I also thought was kind of refreshing. Like, what does the layman think from an outside perspective of this hobby? And though all of these discussions and things have happened over the years in their own private kind of arenas, I really want to do like this big open mic where people just can be free. I don't care about what side of the aisle on any particular topic or controversy within these games and communities. I don't care. Like, if even content creators I blatantly don't like, if they were to show up in my chat and ask to come on, like, I'm not going to give an example because I just don't want to say who I don't like and who I do. But if someone, let's say a content creator that I particularly don't enjoy and who's in the community, I maybe disagree with them a lot, I maybe have a lot of issues with them, but if they were to come into the chat and want to participate in this 2 to 3 hour, that's what I'm predicting anyway, 2 to 3 hour open mic kind of podcasty style, just open discussion about tabletop gaming in relation to wargaming. But I totally welcome that. I just want, I want a discussion. I want an open discussion. And obviously, some background rules are the discussion here today in particular is meant to be self-contained to the topic of tabletop wargaming. We can go on a little bit of tangents for anybody who wants to jump into the open mic call. But generally speaking, I do want to keep it concise and glued to this particular topic. Some sample stuff to bring in that relates to it, that's fine, but let's just not go off mark here. Let's not bring up politics, let's not bring up IRL controversies that are completely unrelated to the hobby. Let's keep it self-contained. Now that I've got that preamble all set, welcome Calciel to the chat, welcome Dragonis, and welcome Horace Brittle. Welcome to the open mic conversation. So now that we actually got some folks in the chat here, Let me real quick. There is a link in the description of this. There's a link in the description of this podcast that links you guys to my friend's Discord. You don't have to stay there if you don't want to after this stream and after this whole conversation goes down. But there's going to be a link to that, and I'm going to be in a invisible stream call. That way I can concisely bring people in and out. But yeah, feel free to join the Discord briefly, or if you want to stay, we always welcome new members. And if you want to be brought in to bring in the discussion and converse with me, there is going to be a VC line called Call Line, and it's going to be the only one seemingly that's in its own category. I'm actually in a chat above that's invisible, and I will bring people in one at a time and kind of let you guys just say what's on your mind, whether it's crazy negative about the hobby or crazy positive. I want all perspectives available and welcome here. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of breath because I was a little nervous to kind of do this because I don't know how much interaction we're gonna get, but I did really want to do this. So yeah. Gunner NWP, welcome. Are we going to war? I mean, I don't know. Is there a reason to go to war? I mean, it's tabletop wargaming, so of course we're always going to war. Like every single time we get my minis all painted. Speaking of, I got a tournament, a 40k tournament at a local hobby store on the 27th of this month, kind of like last month, and I got that coming up. So I'm actually trying to paint up over 47 Tyranids before then, which is going to be a bitch since 30 of them are not assembled yet. But anyway, I will real quick share that link to the Discord that's in the description in the chat real quick. But keep in mind at any point in the stream, if you want to join in and take advantage of the open mic, it is indeed available. Go ahead and there's the link. Go ahead and join up, and I'm in the call line. And at any point, I want to bring people in. And one of the three general questions I do want to bring up as we go about this thing is the three major questions I'm going to ask pretty much everybody who comes in. Whether I have actually sent some feelers out to some fellow content creators. I sent a feeler out to Arch. I sent a feeler out to my co-host Lotus, though he has already told me he cannot attend. He is at work. He is too busy at the moment, which is understandable. I sent a feeler out to Kill Team Hungry, who, again, might be too busy, and quite frankly, it's probably late over there where they are. I know there's a 6 to 7 hour difference between where they're at, where I'm at, so it's very late in the afternoon for both of them, so if they're both tired, they may not show up, but I did send those feelers out, so if they do show up at some point, just know I give you prior warning. Like, don't be surprised, like, oh, big content creators, what are they doing here? But also be aware that they may likely not be able to attend. I haven't heard from most of them. And I do intend to share this on Twitter. I think I already did, but I'll have to double check in a short bit. To see if I can get anyone else who wants to come in. But of course, that's beside the point. They're just kind of big faces in the community. I want anybody who's in the community to kind of hop in and give their thoughts. But the three big questions I'm going to ask are, what do you think of the hobby in its present state? And this is general. You can specify if you're not into BattleTech, if you're not into Mech Warrior, if you're not into Age of Sigmar, if you're not into old school fantasy, if you're not into one-page rules, if you're not into 40k, and you are into one of the others and just want to hyper focus on the one that you're in, that's fine. But if you do have thoughts about like the overall sphere, I welcome that. But generally, in the sphere that you do focus on, like, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts that pertain to the current state of things, and what are your thoughts on the future of it? And of course, the third big question I'm going to ask is, what are your thoughts on how 3D printing will affect the hobby? Because I think a lot of people either understate or overstate 3D printing and its effects on the hobby sphere and on the community sphere a lot. So I really do want to encourage people to look at that particular end of things a lot. But yeah, generally, those are the three big questions. And from there, you can ask me questions. I can ask back and forth. It is a conversation. I'm not going to limit each convo on time too much unless there's a backlog of people in the call line. Then I will have to cut it off at some point. But by all means, just hop in. Hop into the call line VC. I'll pull you into the stream call, and we can have a conversation. I welcome this, and we're going to be doing this again for next 2-3 hours. There, I think I got the mouthful out. Hi from Texas. Nice. I'm in Maine. I'm in the opposite end of the country from you. You're the most southern state. I am the most northern state. But yes, welcome, Kaiju Blood God. Or is it Kaiju Blood God? Like, do I have to emphasize the space? Anyway, how you doing? Welcome to the open mic discussion about tabletop wargaming, its future, where things are going. And as I just kind of went on a spiel, I shared the link in the chat, but it's also in the description. If at any point you want to join in the open mic, which is right on the Discord, it's in call line, and I'll pull you into the stream call, and we can have a conversation where I'm going to ask like 3 big questions that pertain to the hobby sphere, and you can specify based on the specific tabletop war games you play, or you can give general responses that apply to the whole sphere. But yep. All mic is open. Discord is also open, and yeah, call line. Go on ahead and jump in call line. I'll start pulling people in. In the meantime, I guess I'll give my thoughts on the answers to those same 3 questions. So as for how do I phrase this? So as for how I see the hobby sphere looking right now in its current state. With 40k, with Age of Sigmar, with Warhammer Fantasy, those are like the big ones that I follow, and even then, out of those, I'm 99% into 40k. The last 1% is mostly split amongst like a passive attention I'm paying to Age of Sigmar and / Warhammer Fantasy, which is kind of its side thing. It's just I never got into it. I do actually want to get into Age of Sigmar / Warhammer Fantasy. But it's just one of those things where, like, the aesthetic, I am very much a sci-fi driven individual, so that's like my big thing. Hold on. Hey, that was weird. Sorry, there was a little thing blocking me there. But yeah, sorry. But as for my thoughts on, if we go 40k specifically, I think the hobby is in kind of a weird situation right now. 40k, I think, objectively speaking, has never been more popular than it is now. There could be debate there, of course, but as I see it, I don't think the hobby has been nearly as popular as it is right now. Like, this is the most popular 40k has ever been. There's for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of debate on the reasons why it's gotten so popular lately. The Astartes fan animation that came out, like a year ago, 2 years ago now. It's been a hot minute, but a year or so back, we got the Astartes animation, which a lot of laymen who had no idea that tabletop wargaming was even a thing were suddenly seeing this high quality, like movie quality animation made by a single person who's a fan of this universe. Like, damn, this universe must demand quite a bit of love if one person put this much time and effort into this thing. God damn. So a lot of new people came in because of Astartes. A lot of new people came in because of other content creation that's been doing on YouTube. The fan base has really spread the word about 40k, and it really blew up these last couple of years. By, I would say, like mid-8th edition to now into 9th. And like I'd be remiss if I didn't also credit Text-to-Speech Device, that series, that comedy series that really showcased not only some of the lore, and yeah, in a loosey-goosey way, but some of the lore to the layman, but also it just gave some recognition for people to kind of be like, oh, okay, I don't know where this is from. I kind of want to look it up. I kind of want to look into it. And then they do, and then they get into the hobby. And yeah, that has been a major influence on the growth of 40k and the growth, not just 40k, but all the subsidiary games of Games Workshop, which includes Age of Sigmar, Warhammer Fantasy, and that Lord of the Rings tabletop war game that I've never played, but which is weird because I do love Lord of the Rings, but I just never got into it. Yeah, like there's lots of that initial growth that has been caused by that, but that growth, that size increase has come with growing pains, which has affected the community quite heavily, which kind of leads to, which kind of leads me to my next point, which is, though the hobby has blown up, though the game of 40k is at probably its most popular it's ever been, and most covered it's ever been on YouTube and other platforms, the growing pains that came with that is also the this is where I got to tread my words carefully. This is that it invited in the unwelcome crowd. Now like I said before, I don't want to get into the politics of things, but this is relevant to the topic at hand. 40K and Tabletop Wargaming, I would say almost in general because of this, but 40K specifically because it's kind of the face of the genre right now, got, for lack of a better word, invaded. I would use that phrasing. Some people might disagree, some people might contest that phrasing, but I would say invaded. The community and the genre and the hobby did get invaded by more politically active crowds. Now, some will debate it's the alt-right, some will debate it's the left. I'm just going to say I don't care which we're talking about here. I would say it's an objective truth that the hobby got invaded, unfortunately, by political activists. People who invade hobbies, claim to become fans, claim to be fans of those hobbies, but then advocate for those hobbies to be ripped from the ground up and reshaped in their ideological image. And they don't care what has to be done to do so. If it means destroying the lore, that's fine. That's justified because it makes what they want accomplished. Does it mean the community is rendered asunder and people end up in these large-scale debates about things that have nothing to do with the game that should be unifying us? Doesn't matter. Their message is now being spread, and their message is now enveloping the hobby in the sphere. Now, again, I don't want to go into the depths of politics in that. That's for me. That's just the problem. Is these conversations being brought into a sphere where it is not welcome. BC, welcome. Kairos, welcome to the stream. The open mic is still open. Just a quick rundown for both of y'all. This is an open mic conversation. I'm currently just answering the 3 questions I'm gonna pose to anybody who wants to hop into the call line, which is open on the Discord. There is a link in the chat I shared earlier, but there's also a link in the description. Feel free to click that, join the Discord server, and join if you want to participate in the call line aspect for the open mic. Join the VC called Call Line. Just hop into that, and I will pull you into the stream call one at a time, and I will pose 3 questions, which, again, I'm currently answering some of those questions myself. But yeah, feel free to do that if you want to participate. If you just want to listen, if you just want to kind of listen to my answers and also listen to hopefully the answers of folks who are going to join the call line and be brought in and add to the conversation. But yeah, I'm just kind of going on the floor right now. But as I was saying, yeah, so we've had that bit of an issue that came with the popularization of tabletop wargaming and specifically 40K, Age of Sigmar, Warhammer Fantasy. A lot of the laymen's that were focused on spreading political activism in other hobbies, in other places, and we all know why political activists choose hobbies and choose choose entertainment-related things to spread messages is because very few people go out of their way to look up a political article or look up the latest open letter from some political activists or look up even videos related to some kind of soapbox-related conversation about a political topic. Most people's focus is nowhere near any of that. Most people spend their time playing video games, reading books, novels, comic books, graphic novels, playing tabletop games, playing D&D, it goes on. These are the entertainment sphere is where people's attention is. And if you are trying to spread an ideological message, that is what you're going to do. Blast Gunner 96, I will pull you in just a second. I'm just going to finish up this particular question. And I'll answer the other 2 later, but I do want to get Blast Gunman in first. Because it's more important what you guys have to say. I'm just kind of sharing my perspective while we have people kind of sift in. But just to finish up this point, like how I see the modern state of the hobby and state of the sphere, outside of that political activism, outside of that, kind of shifting that aside, the hobby, well, not shifting aside, in because of that increase of people that came into the hobby, we've resulted in a lot of conflict, a lot of division in the hobby, and also a lot of advocated for changes to the universes we all have invested years and years and thousands of dollars in. And these changes are not being advocated for because they are an objective improvement to the hobby. They're not being advocated for because they are an objective, positive change. One would argue they are being advocated for because, again, it's about spreading a message, spreading a dialogue that they find more important than people's general entertainment. And if anything, the division is welcome because they only want one side of the debate to be catered to, while the other is not. And again, these activist types do not care about how that rips apart a hobby. But that's a big negative. That's a big con that I wanted to address and get out of the way. I do want to state the positives of the hobby right now. With that growing pain put aside, the positives of the hobby definitely come with, because there are more people playing, there are more people engaging, there are more people investing in the hobby, more people to talk to online, more people to share painting miniature tips, assembling miniatures. The community has grown in a positive way, and I do want to stress that, in a positive way next to the activists. Yes, they are a huge, swollen, pus-filled cyst on the hobby right now, but it's not fair to only focus on them and not acknowledge the boon to the community that we have received with new people. We've had a lot of people become hobbyists, join the hobby, and not done so in a political activist way to stand on a soapbox and preach to the rest of us while we're trying to play a fucking tabletop game. We've had people come in who are genuinely interested, who are genuinely picking up armies, who are genuinely attending tournaments and public events and cons and stuff, and engaging in great ways with us in the community. And in many ways, that almost kind of evens out the cyst, I would say. It's easier to focus on the problem, but I would say it almost evens it out. Almost. The negatives are still kind of, in my opinion, more ever-present. But that positive needs to be acknowledged. We did get a lot of good new people who actually are fans and actually do want to engage in this hobby. All right, so that kind of covers like my perspective on the modern state of 40K specifically, and also the sphere specifically. Yes, we've had a huge negative get sifted in, but we've also got some good. We got some good that we really do need to acknowledge. All right. There is some more to the modern state I could mention that's GW related, but I wanted to focus on the community aspect, and I'll go into that later. But bring in Blast Gunman. All right, Blast Gunman, what's up, my man? Welcome. You are now on the open mic. How you doing? Uh-oh. Hello. He's in the call. Uh-oh. That is not good. I do not hear you, my friend. Are you muted? Righto. Check your settings. If you go to user settings, this is a common problem with some folks. Go to voice and video and double check your input and output devices. Make sure that those line up with what your mic is and stuff. Where in the Discord do we go? Oh, we go. I want you guys to go to the call line VC. It's the only VC visible in its category. But there is an invisible one I'm in that I'm gonna pull people in one at a time in, so you guys can chat back and forth with me, and so I can pose like the 3 big questions I have for the general hobbyist in the sphere. Uh-oh. He's lost in the warp. Send help. Indeed. Send battle brother. Oh, he had to hop out. Alright. Can you hear me? Damn. Okay. I don't have anybody muted, do I? No, I'm not getting any input. Double check my settings just in case it's not me. Input. All right, output. Okay, yeah, my input and output is correct. Damn. Send a witch hunter. Send the Inquisition. No, don't do that. Bad idea. Okay, hold on. Did you check your... Okay, so Blast Gunman's having some mic issues. I'm trying to help him out here. Sorry for the delay, folks. Don't worry, we'll figure this out. Hopefully. Try the litany of percussive maintenance. Litany of percussive maintenance. Let's see. Yeah, so I know it's not my end. Can you, Blast Gunman? I didn't DM you, but I added you in voice chat text. Can you hear me at all? Like, can you tell me if you can hear me? I got into 40K about 5 years ago. Nice. I got in about 9. This upcoming by 2023 will be my 10th year in the hobby. So I don't know. Okay. Alright, so Blascoman had to hop out. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it looks like he's got some mic issues he's got to fix, so we'll, hopefully he'll get those fixed, and he'll be right back. Okay. Yeah. That is fine. We all have technical issues. Yeah, call line is still open, though, for anyone who wants to hop in, while Blast Gunman tries to fix up whatever's going on. I'm assuming he's trying to fix it up. Either that or he had to give up. I hope not, but it would have been nice to have that conversation. But anywho, I guess I'll continue answering the three questions. To kind of go further in the first question, again, that being, what is my thoughts on like the modern state of the hobby, whether it's 40K specifically or the sphere of tabletop wargaming. I would say I've already covered like the big negative, which is how the popularization of it recently has kind of allowed the hobby to be infested. Again, it's a strong word, but it's the only one that sounds appropriate to me. Has allowed the hobby to get very infested with some undesirable characters. That comes with anything going popular. That's not unique to this situation, unfortunately. People like to take advantage of when they see an opening, if you will. So that has come across to the hobby. And again, the positive that I find that almost evens that out is the amount of good people that have joined the hobby. The amount of people who genuinely are interested in painting miniatures, collecting armies, interested in going to tournaments, or participating in painting competitions, or interested in learning about the lore, reading the Horus Heresy, or getting into Warhammer Fantasy / Age of Sigmar. There is plenty of positive with that aspect, but that's community related. If we look at GW specifically, if we look at Games Workshop, this is where a whole nother can of worms kind of opens up, and then we're still talking modern hobby sphere, modern game sphere. My biggest issue, I suppose, with Games Workshop is they're probably, outside of the political activists, they are probably the biggest, in a weird, ironic sense, their biggest problem with their own community and with their own hobby. They actively do things, and I think no matter what end of any controversy you're on, I don't think anyone would debate this. At least I would hope not. But Games Workshop genuinely have done a lot to hurt the hobby, hurt the community, hurt hobbyists, make it actively harder to get into their communities, to get into the sphere. They've done a lot to kill the goodwill that the community has fought so hard to garner. That's the thing. I really hope nobody at GW is patting themselves on the back thinking that something they did resulted in its surge in popularity these last couple years. Because to be quite frank, I don't think anything they did really did that. Games Workshop are their own worst enemy, and I find that so ironic. The community really got some popularity, start to boom with our hobby, within our hobby sphere. Again, Astartes being a good credit, content creators like the text-to-speech device with Riva Alphabusa, and so many others, like Sodaz when he did stuff. The community really got people to notice the hobby, whereas, in my opinion, Games Workshop actively hurt their own marketing. And even if people did notice stuff on GW's behalf or from the community, they made it hard for people to even want to bother because a Star Collecting box was $90 fucking dollars, and now those are getting completely sifted out for combat patrols, which are over 140. That's supposed to be the starter box, and a new hobbyist who sees that price tag is gonna turn the other way, and that's been an active problem. Pricing has always been GW's cruel, like over the top, most over the top fucking thing. And some days we're like, oh, okay, it's not as bad. Some days people debate like if it's really as bad as other people say. But then they release new boxes all the time that honestly, if you start to debate, okay, if I buy these things individually, am I really saving that much money if I just buy the box? Because I buy the box set, I save like $2. And in regards to like GW's line of miniatures, that's like nothing. Like you're barely saving anything these days, and they're really, honestly, like their pricing is such a horrendously handled thing, and it's been a big issue for a lot of people. Looks like Blast Gunman came in. All right, but yeah, I guess I'll finish that thought with just noting, and this will probably wrap up like my view of like the modern hobby, just to wrap it up. Because there's the other two questions I myself have not answered. But outside of the pricing issue, how they've treated the community is actually something to note. GW have, I think the most relevant one I could bring up is the IP policy change that GW did. I don't know a single hobbyist that was for that. Them basically threatening, which they couldn't enforce, especially if you're an American content creator like myself, there was no way they could enforce some of the things that they claim they want to. But the IP policy stuff that they changed up, where they basically threw down the gauntlet and said to all content creators and to people responsible for their hobby and their universe making so much more money and getting more popular, and therefore them getting a bigger customer base, the people responsible for that, they gave the middle finger to, said fuck you, and said screw off with their IP policy, basically stating, and they did it just because of that Warhammer Plus thing. Like that, I'll get into that more in myself later, but I guess I'm not done with the first question. There's still more I want to get into, but anyway, I've held Blast Gunman up enough. Alright, man, can you hear me? Hello? Okay. I don't have him muted. We are having some terrible luck so far. Good news is, though, is you want to use up all your bad luck at the start and then kind of shake it off. The popularity of the hobby is strange to me. On one hand, seeing new fan content is always fun and cool, but it's weird when I see TikToks and reaction videos on 40k stuff. I can kind of, yeah, I can relate to that. It's weird. I tend to lean on the more positive side of it. There shouldn't be, hold on. Let me check the settings. The channel should not be limiting people's Uh, okay. Yeah, the chat doesn't have anything against that. I don't know. Eh. Yeah, like there's no permissions issue. You don't know I was able to talk in the Discord. I'm not sure what you're saying, man. Because you say I can't talk in that chat. Many I don't have power to do so. You don't know I was able to talk in the other what? Okay, now you've confused me. Alright, let's try this then. Let's both go to call line. Alright, can you hear me? Hello? Hello, 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 hello. Okay, let's both go to... Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so Blast Gunman can't, apparently.
That's strange.
No idea. I don't hear him.
Neither do I. He said he could talk in another Discord. I don't know what that means, though. Okay, so clearly it's on his end.
The issue is somewhere on his end, as it seems.
Yeah.
Yes.
Alright, thank you for the test. Okay. Yeah, Blast Gunman, it works just fine. Something's going on your end. I don't know what, but something's going on your end. Yeah. Blast Gunman, we're gonna take you out of the call. See if you can figure out how to fix your issue. I have no idea what's going on. Jagonis, welcome to the open mic. Welcome, 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 welcome. What the?
You can hear me, right?
Oh, now jeez, you gave me a heart attack for a second there. I was like, is something fucking up with this chat or something?
No. As far as I can tell, everything is fine.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that's weird. Well, anyway, welcome to the open mic. Do you want me to pose the 3 questions? Do you want to say anything off the bat before I do?
You can pose the 3 questions.
All right. So first question is, I'll let you answer them one at a time. So the first big question I'm asking for the open mic conversation is, what do you think of the tabletop wargaming hobby in its totality? Its totality right now, and you can, if you don't really have thoughts on like the overall sphere, like not just outside 40k and Age of Sigmar, but like everything. If you don't have thoughts on like that bigger thing, you can specify to specifically 40k, Games Workshop related tabletop war games and stuff like that. So, what do you think about the modern state of it right now? Not necessarily what you think about it in the future, but right now. What do you think about it right now?
I mean, with 40k especially, it's way too expensive. It doesn't get to the point where people can easily join and can get a 1,000-point army affordably if they do not have a lot of cash. It's just a bit too expensive to have. And if you want to build a big army or have a few armies, you're going to pay more than a car. It's going to be more expensive than a car.
Yeah,
and
it adds
they
up
have not adapted at all well to the 3D printing.
No,
they should try to adapt to that, and they don't.
The thing is, there's a lot of things that they could do with that'll relate to the third question I'll ask. But there's so much about I would say related to like how it is modernly though right now, just to keep it connected to that question. Like in your opinion, what has been a bigger motivator for people to start 3D printing? just that 3D printing is getting more affordable, or do you think it's also being influenced by how much GW is increasing its prices? Like, do you think it's only the boon on one end and not the pressure on the other, or do you think it's a combination of the pressure of GW increasing its prices more and more so ridiculously when it's already near unaffordable?
I'm quite sure it's a combination of both, but the pricing definitely has a big influence. I mean, if they would actually sell, the thing is, they're not gonna sell you anything in regards to just the blueprints or anything, because that would make them way too obsolete. So they're never gonna do that. We already know that. But they really try to keep everyone from using 3D printers, and there's no way to do that besides getting cheaper.
And yeah, they a while back, I don't know if they still are, but didn't they hire I can't remember what the position was called.
Hasbro executive or what?
No. They hired specific individuals to basically track down IP violators, like people.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like I can't remember what the position was called, but they were hiring people for that, to kind of track down and find people who were breaking their IP policy, which includes the 3D printing and the people making proxies for their miniatures. Like they were doing that a while back, which if they thought that was a good look, it made them look even worse. Because they're already aggressive as it is.
Proxies of their miniatures is one thing that really hurts their business in itself. I can understand that they try to lock down that a bit, but if you consider that a box of minis costs between 200 and 300 euros at times, it's not something that's easily affordable. And I'm not quite sure how big the pricing is in the States, but as of Germany, it's not at a point where anyone that's not a working adult can buy an army.
Yeah.
If you're not a working adult, you will not be able to afford an army at any point.
And you need to, and I would even throw in this argument that if you're a working adult, if you're just a working adult and you're living, like, if you factor in, like, people's daily expenses, even if you're a single working adult in a cheaper living conditions, like, let's say you live in a cheap apartment that, not nowadays, this would never happen, but it only costs you, if we're using U.S. currency, it only costs you $500 a month, which is unheard of. But it's like a one-bedroom, one-bath kind of situation like that.
You mean a tiny little condo that's not really a good living, but
if we give the most conservative estimates of an average person's income, right? Like you're living in that kind of a condition where your living expenses aren't immense. Like it's less than 500 or a little bit over 500 a month. And you let's say you work an average job in the United States, an average minimum wage job. Let's again be more fair or more optimistic. Let's say you work $17 an hour, which is a bit above minimum wage in quite a few places, but $17 an hour.
That's quite a bit above our minimum wage.
And yeah, well,
a lot.
I'm throwing out again a very generous number. Let's say you're working for $17 an hour and you're employed full time, 40 hours a week. Take out that $500, a little over $500 from their paycheck every month. They still only have enough money to, and let's say they spend all of their spare income on GW stuff, just
not on anything else.
On anything else, not food, not toiletries, nothing like that. Just all of it on this hobby. They still have like what, $1,700 max to work with on an income like that. And that's barely enough to get
taxes and stuff.
Yeah, and if you factor in everything you need to get started in the hobby, you need to buy the miniatures, and let's say they just buy 2 combat patrols for a 1,000 point equivalent of an army. That's $240 right there, cha-ching. They have to buy the paints relevant to it, and let's say that they're looking to just do tournament standard, which is still 3 colors. If they buy Citadel paints, those are like $4 or $5 a pop. These little fucking dinky little pots. So let's be conservative there too, and say that's like $40, $50 of an investment. They got to get primer, and GW Citadel primer is fucking what, $20 a can, give or take.
And every one of the pots is like $8.
Around where the hobby shops I go to, they're $5. They're $5 a pop, but they might. I don't know.
Okay,
They might be
they're
more
way
there.
more expensive here.
Yeah, they're $5 a pot here. It's still ridiculous though, because it's only like that much. I actually have a couple. It's only that much fucking paint. Like it's a little. Granted, it's more than it looks, but it's
50 milliliters, or what is it?
12 milliliters.
That's nothing.
12 milliliters of fucking paint, and these things also are terrible. Their paint pots are fucking god awful. Like, because once you open these, you got to use that paint within a month, or it's gonna fucking dry.
Yeah.
Unless you live in a humid place where stuff doesn't dry as quick. But I live in an icy wasteland, and it is its own form of a desert. But yeah, like if you factor in all those other things they got to get to keep consistent with the hobby, they basically got to use all of that $1,700 for like the start of the hobby. Like it's easily gonna it's. And that's not even for a competitive list. I'm talking like 2 combat patrols, which they don't even necessarily have the best units in combat patrols. They have good ones for certain combat patrols, but they're mostly
they're not tournament ready.
Yeah, they're not something I would say is competitive.
Yeah.
But let's just say
if you want to get a real army that's tournament competitive, you probably need to spend at least 3,000.
Well, yeah, certainly have a range that is effective, and this is all for one army, by the way.
Yeah, that's not multiple army. That's one army.
This is one army
in a combat relative state to go to a tournament.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Like the initial investment
that's a car
is immense. Yeah, it's an initial car payment, and
that's like, if I'm getting that's 3 months of rent, 4, if you're living cheaper.
Yeah,
3 to 4 months of rent. That's a lot of cash to spend on plastic miniatures that
it is
printed in hundreds and thousands.
And that circles back around to the 3D printing thing, which right now 3D printing is cheaper to get into than buying a full fucking army from GW. Not only is it cheaper, but after you get over the hurdle of its initial investment, you're spending very little money on 10 times what GW gives you for a fraction of the cost. Like, I can print off, like, hold on, let me grab some samples here. I printed off this heavy mortar, Krieg mortar. Well, it's a Krieg mortar proxy. I printed this off, and it cost me $3.
I mean, let's say generous, and they pay 30 cents a mini by producing it. That's a generous amount, that way I say. And they sell it 1 mini for probably $5, $6 a single.
Yeah, like it's fucking ridiculous what they cost. And I've been printing off a Krieg army, all 3D printed myself, with really high quality proxy models that, in my opinion, look better than GW. And it's cost me a fraction of the cost. Yes, the initial investment into 3D printing can be kind of expensive, especially if you want a high quality printer, which you don't need, to be frank. The quality prints that are better than GW, you can get in a Lego Mars Pro 2, which is like $180. It's a really cheap printer, and you can get that, and you'll be producing minis really fast for ultra cheap after that initial investment. And you don't even need to get all the other like niceties. Like I got 2 wash and cure machines. You don't need a wash and cure machine. You can just get a bucket of if you get water washable resin, you can just get a bucket of water and swish them off. If you use 4K resin, which is just regular resin, which is not water washable, you got to get isopropyl alcohol. It's going to be really stinky. But if you do that outside, you can still swish them and clean them off real quick.
Yeah, but that's not a big problem. You can do that, especially if you don't have the cash for a cleaner.
And to UV cure them, you can just literally put them outside and have them sunbathe. Yeah. You can actually get a tan while your minis UV cure. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like how much money you save if you get a 3D printer. Like I haven't bought a GW official mini in years now. I've had some bought for me. I do need to attest that, like some of my family for
From a
Christmas.
financial standpoint, there's no good reason to get one.
No.
But since they've banned all 3D minis, and if you can't get past that, you cannot play with competitive style.
To be
But
fair,
you could at least play with every one of your friends.
yeah. To be fair to their tournament rules, I did actually double check the wording of that. They do allow 3D printed proxies. However, you need to prove they're not third party. Like you need to prove you 3D modeled and printed it off yourself. So,
Yeah,
so I already
even
made
if you
this.
did that-
I already made this joke, but basically that means if you go to Warhammer World, right, and do a tournament there, I just imagine they have Waffen SS officers walking around being like, this mini looks very good, yeah. Do you have your papers to prove it is yours? And it's like, oh well no, but like yeah, I made that and I 3D printed it off. Oh, so you not have proof? Naughty. Fred, you must get in the van.
Thing is, the biggest problem for them is their pricing range.
Yeah.
The second biggest problem is how they haunt and stalk their community to the point where it's painful. They don't try to get on with the community.
No, like they actively fight against us. While at the same time they like release public letters and community posts and stuff like that, where they kind of phrase it like they're on our side. Like, but they act at the nicest. They act like arbiters of the community, which they're really terrible at. And what they arbitrate is not usually in favor of the community. It's actually actively against it. And at the worst of times, which is where they are most regularly, they're like this looming shadow, this looming ghost over your shoulder, constantly haunting you, making what should be a pleasurable and enjoyable experience actively not. And they do this they give off this aura all the time to us hobbyists, and it's just exhausting.
The thing is, they're actively stalking anyone who's making content, even if the content would help them sell their minis.
Yeah,
which is ridiculous at any point.
Yeah, and I just don't understand it. Now
it's community harming.
Yeah,
and even in every other situation, it's just Warhammer Tabletop and most other tabletops are not affordable for normal people.
Yeah.
If you don't have a good job, you will not be able to spend that much money on minis.
Yeah. Unless you 3D print and do proxies, which they forbid. Well, near forbid. And they're hyper aggressive about it. All right, so we got some multiple people in the call line, so we're gonna blast through the other two questions. I'm not gonna add to them. Though I want to, trust me, I do. But I also want to give everybody a chance to kind of talk. So I'll just blast through the other two questions and just let you answer them. Question number 2: where do you see the hobby, like whether it's tabletop wargaming as in its totality, or if we hyper specialize in GW related ones like 40k and Age of Sigmar and Warhammer Fantasy? Where do you see the hobby, pros or cons or both, in the future? Like, where do you see it going at its current rate?
I can imagine that at some point they will either try to at least reduce the price somewhat, or at least try to become a little bit more friendly, because they will have to, or they will just get out of market at some point. Because if they keep increasing their prices and 3D printing is getting cheaper and easier every year, it's simple a fact. You don't have to know much to do 3D printing.
Oh no, it's very.
As a person who knows little to nothing about anything of this, you can learn it in a few weeks.
You can learn it in less. Like, I'd say your first 3 prints are probably going to be your worst. Once you get the hang of the settings and understand how they work, like, you're totally set. So your general answer is, at their current rate, you'd say that GW might go under, or might see.
They need to get on with the modern stuff. They need to adapt, or they will definitely at some point go under. I don't think they can indefinitely do this.
All right. And the final question. Is well, we already kind of answered it, but I'll ask it more specifically. How do you see 3D printing? And I guess because we've already answered how it's affecting it modernly, I'll specify for the future. How do you think 3D printing is going to continue to affect the hobby? And again, the hobby as a whole, not just GW and 40K and stuff like that, but tabletop wargaming as a whole.
The thing is, at some point, they will probably have. I think most people will at least have a 3D printer to do, even if it's just the outlines. If you want to build a city or print a city or anything specific that will help you. I don't think that every mini is going to be printed by people, but probably they will print some.
Right. Before I let you go, I guess I'll kind of, respond to that a little bit because I do want to kind of address that. I actually think that 3D printing is going to become like the mainstream. Now, do I think it's going to completely take over from companies producing it? No, I think a lot of people are quote unquote lazier. Like they don't want to put in the
Or
effort.
they don't have the room.
Or they don't have the room. No, that's true. Like it does. You do need like a 6-foot table's worth of stuff to do 3D printing. And if some people just don't even have that, so that's true. Some people don't have the room capacity. But there will always, I do think the number of people 3D printing is going to increase. I do think we're going to see a lot more proxies, and I do think we're also going to see people buying third-party proxies from these 3D people who do own 3D printers, and also people like myself who are developing our own tabletop war games, and also developing our own miniatures. They're going to buy STLs from them. They're gonna buy them printed from them. I plan to open up a shop on Etsy at some point and sell the prints to people. Not sell the STLs. I am going to sell those on my mini factory at some point in the future, but I also want to be there available to sell the physical prints for people who don't want to get into 3D printing, and I think that's gonna start to flood the market more as well. And GW can't touch that. As much as they might threaten with an iron fist and might shake their fist at it, they really can do nothing about that, because as long as people don't name their stuff the same thing, and as long as the aesthetic isn't one for one, they have no grounds to stand on to take anybody to court, especially in the United States. I can't speak for the UK. They might have more ground to stand on in the UK, but here in the United States, they have virtually no ground to stand on. And there's also a plethora of other countries of hobbyists and fans who are going to do the same thing. Eventually, GW, if they don't adapt, as you said, to the 3D printing aspect, I think that's going to butcher them. I think it's going to come down to the point where if they continue to treat because the only reason some people are still investing in GW's side of things is loyalty. I think that's a huge factor that needs to be addressed. People are loyal to GW, and they're convincing themselves that if they don't give GW money, then the hobby will go under. They don't realize that quite honestly, GW has no control over the hobby, and the codexes and rules are out. Like, people own them, and fans have made their own variations of custom editions of the game, and people have even made their own games off of GW's rules. If GW goes under tomorrow, 40K and Age of Sigmar and Warhammer Fantasy will be entirely fine, because people still own the old rule books if they want to play the official version, and fans will continue to produce the rules in the future. And again,
there's still enough people who have all the minis they need for an army.
Yeah,
there are still people who have everything needed. They just can play it at their own home.
And even if you don't, that comes back around to the 3D printing. Yeah. Proxies and once GW goes under, people are going to make 1-for-1 copies as well, and we'll sell them. So I think GW really needs to understand that it is pure loyalty that is affecting their bottom line. Is it the biggest factor? No, but I will say it is a factor. Loyalty to the hobby and the brainwashed belief that GW somehow represents the hobby, and if they go under, the hobby goes under. Once people start to kind of get through that fog of that miasma of distruth and realize just how little GW actually has control over this hobby, I think once that happens and once they piss people off enough, that's going to be their downfall, and they really need to turn it around. Otherwise, they're fucked.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's those are the 3 questions. I gotta get other people in here. So, but thank you a lot, Dragonis, for giving me your thoughts, man.
No problem.
Much appreciated. Love ya.
Bye bye.
Bye. All right. All right, Blescum, and did you fix your mic? Okay, that's a no. Kaiju Blood God, welcome both to the Discord and to the conversation. How you doing, man? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Ah, it's fantastic. All right, so
Conversation with the waiting list.
well, I hope you guys had some fun combos. All right, so before I ask the 3 big questions, anything like general statements you want to say, anything like that?
I got into 40K 5 years ago. I have a small YouTube channel I barely started where my hobby to make 40K models out of cardstock.
Out of what? Sorry, I didn't hear what you said it was out of.
Cardstock.
Tartstar. Interesting. All right, that's pretty cool. Nice. All right, so thanks for giving me some feedback. I've been in the hobby for 9 years. I'm gonna be in my 10th year at the start of 2023. But yeah, I guess we'll just get into the questions. All right, so the first question is, what do you think of the tabletop wargaming sphere, and specifically, if you want to specify to it, 40K and Age of Sigmar and Warhammer Fantasy? What do you think of the modern state of the hobby right now?
I think of it, it's that for me, I see it, it's got too popular at the wrong time period right now.
Got too popular at the wrong time period. All right.
Well, like for how everything right now is in the modern industry of entertainment.
Want to embellish that a little bit? Well, what specifically about the modern time makes it the wrong time?
Because you know how it's to put into perspective. They want to make it more. They want to. It's no doubt that Games Workshop wants to make it go mainstream.
Hmm.
And the problem with making a lot of niche hobbies that have a particular thing that not a lot of people are going to like or love, they lose their appeal because they sacrificed what made them unique in the first place for a much broader audience. For example, right now with the problem with D&D, how they're just sacrificing so much of its uniqueness and a lot of its lore because of because they became just too big. A lot, and a couple of years ago, I played D&D, and now is like 8 years ago playing D&D. Nobody knew about it, but now apparently everybody in the country now plays D&D, and now everybody's complaining about it.
Yeah, like I definitely agree with that perspective. Like the bloat that comes with it becoming popular, also it adds, not only does it add pressure to the company that's producing it, but the company itself, because of the profit margins, because of everything else, grows so big that they also start to kind of they probably hire on more staff. They probably invest more into the business aspect of it, and because they become more business minded, that ends up affecting how they market the game, that ends up how they end up developing the game, and because they have such a bigger audience, whenever they make changes, the old audience will have issues because of changes, and the new audience will become issues with changes, and literally whatever they do ends up becoming kind of a controversy. So that is something to acknowledge when it comes to tabletop games in particular, and also video games and pretty much every genre. There is definitely a downside inherently, even if we take out like political activists and those types out of the equation. There is still something that comes with the bloat and growth of a given hobby that kind of causes these that causes things to kind of degrade and kind of melt apart, and also leads to changes that will either satisfy no one or will satisfy only one party and result in either the hobby going back to being a niche hobby because people kind of gave up on it on one side of things, or ends up leading to the hobby blowing up entirely.
Yeah, that is true. Very much true. It's just I just don't. I just don't like how they changing so much about it, sacrificing so much of the lore for it, saying there's avowing the Imperium
Yeah.
with their, and it's just like the grim darkness is part of it. It's what makes it unique. There's very few sci-fi in mainstream that's like dark. Most of them are just very cookie cutter, very happy going.
Yeah, especially nowadays. I would say sci-fi definitely had its darker days pre the 21st century. I would say, like if we look back in hell even 1990, there was plenty of Star Trek. Like Star Trek was a bit more of a positive series, especially in the 90s. But you did have a lot of elements of dark or horror related episodes to different Star Trek series. You had then TNG, you had then Voyager even. And if we look even earlier than that, we look at 80s. 80s was the golden era of grimdark or dark sci-fi.
Like RoboCop, like Total Recall.
Hell,
Star
Terminator.
Trek.
Terminator was also
Yeah, Terminator is a good one.
yeah. That was
But-
that was the beauty of that era, and that's the era that 40K was born in. And unfortunately, though most of those were allowed to be laid to rest at their time, 40K in a way unfortunately survived to be now. Some people would use the word evolved into the like more modern sensibilities, and therefore because of modern sensibilities, people are less. Actually, I wouldn't even say people are less attracted to grimdark or darker aesthetics or darker settings, but people are way more care less about a setting being like that and being consistent like that, and more about its. Again, I don't like going back to it, but unfortunately, I have to acknowledge it. There's this huge slant about like how it affects the real world, and that's how like the political ideologues constantly phrase and frame these universes. And they even ask for changes that would make it less grimdark because of, again, real world ideologies and stuff like that, which I don't appreciate. And I just don't. I could go down that further, but I've already kind of said my piece about that. But yeah, I agree. Like they're sacrifice because of the wider fan base, they can't remain grimdark because that means less audiences will stick to the hobby. Because right now, yes, they are getting more exposure, they're getting a lot more marketing out there, and they're getting noticed more. But with that, new audiences won't stick to it if it remains grimdark, because that's what's kept it niche, that darker, that more depressing aesthetic. And if they keep that, a lot of people will hit against the hobby like I don't know what's a good analogy. They'll kind of hit like a bird against a glass window, like boom, and they'll fly off. They want people to stick like super glue. And the way they see of doing that is by recoating that grimdark paint with some more vibrancy and more welcoming, sensible colors.
Yeah, the political ideologues, when they say like this affects reality and all that stuff, I just say it's just a fictional series. I could say 40K is ironically a good analogy to what's happening today in modern day. You can say that for the Imperium is a very conservative society, and Chaos are basically a good representation of leftism in modern day society. But I don't argue about that because I just enjoy for it what it is. It's a series. I like seeing people fight demons in giant powered armored suits with the chainsaw swords.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. And
But I think-
that's exactly what it should be. Exactly.
It's just epic, grand scale in a awesome. One of the most. This is the only series I think that combines that combines sci-fi with fantasy so perfectly.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. And I wish more people thought and looked at it like we do, where this is a universe that is cool, it's badass, and it's not meant. Yeah, you can, and that's kind of some people's fun of it, and I won't disregard that some people enjoy making comparisons and connections from the real world to fiction. That's fine. But when you allow it to completely overbear your perspective on the hobby and how you enjoy it and how you allow other people to enjoy it, I think it's ridiculous, and I think that's what's going to end up hurting the community side of things definitely the most. And that's definitely what most of us are going to miss about the hobby having been more niche. And now that it's gone mainstream or going mainstream, we're seeing that die.
Yeah, And to keep in mind, I'm not a guy that's like I am all for gatekeeping for the bad people, for every person that just that just don't care about the hobby. They just want to change it for their own good.
Yeah.
But when I learned about 40K in school, I like talking to people about it and teaching them about it, and I got a lot of people into the books, and brought me so much joy that they got into it because it was such a cool series for everybody to get into.
Yeah, and that's fantastic to hear, man. Like, that's how I got into the hobby. My best friend introduced me to 40K because we were talking about sci-fi series one day in my freshman year of high school, and I was just we were talking back and forth. I told him how I loved Firefly, how I like Star Wars, how I like Star Trek, and how I like Battlestar Galactica, but how I kind of was remiss at the time because I was like, I kind of experienced all the major sci-fi series out there. And he kind of had a hold my beer moment, although it was hold my chocolate milk. And he invited me over one weekend and just showed me his army of orcs at the time, and he showed me the codex, and then we just had these long conversations for like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours in his basement, just kind of chatting back and forth about the hobby, and that was immediately hooked, and I've been a hobbyist ever since then. So that is definitely one of the best parts about the hobby, especially in its golden era, was that it was a niche hobby that was spread word to mouth to everybody. That was the beauty of it. But unfortunately, it's been spread too well, and now we're seeing some of the negative aspects. So we'll leave the first question there because we do actually have other people on the call. Let's move on to the next question. Where do you see the hobby and the hobby sphere of tabletop wargaming and GW and GW related tabletop war games in the future? Like, where do you see it going?
It's hard to say, to be honest, because I like the hobby because of the story and the models. I rarely get a chance to play the actual game because it's hard for where I live to find enough people. The only people I found that play the game is in the military, but I'm not in it anymore. So, and the models are getting more expensive for what you get.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
For example, not only do I like 40K as a modeling project, as a modeling hobby, I also make model kits for tanks, from other companies. One, for example, Tamiya, that do 135 scale models, and also Gunpla. And to put into perspective, I have 3 right now that I'm building. They're 3 modern tanks. They're the equivalent to the size of a Bane blade. They cost each one of them costs a total of $30, so I had to pay around 90 for all of them together. One Bane blade costs $120 from Games Workshop.
Yeah, and if you want to get into Imperial Knights, like a Canis Rex is 140.
Yeah, and Gunpla, they released, I think a year ago, of a Gundam that costs you like $200, but it's like a quarter your size, and it has everything on it. It has lights, it has the internal mechanics, the joints, the pistons, all. You built all of it from scratch, from the plastics, and that's one hell of a worth a price to get something that good.
I mean, yeah, I can't speak too much about the Gunpla stuff, but I have heard that though each Gunpla is fairly expensive, that the intricacy of each model makes it really worth it. So I have heard that. And that does make me interested in kind of like at least getting one. But then when I say that, a bunch of the Gunpla people are like, which one? I'm like, I don't know.
I recommend Zaku's because I'm not a fan of the fucking the main hero Gundams. They look like Power Rangers or Super Sentai. Zaku's because they look closer to fucking Space Marines to, and 3D printing has affected a lot of this, but
Absolutely.
in my opinion, for a good way, because it has helped a lot of people find to get into a hobby in a much cheaper route.
Well, I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Absolutely.
3D printing is still in its infancy, but it's advancing very fast because it's becoming a very big market for a lot of modelers to get into and to invest.
And because of the companies that produce the 3D printers are getting such good business, their prices are actually going down. Like you see discounts all the time for 3D printers. Not the rest of the 3D printers themselves are getting a bunch of really great discounts, and even their base prices have lowered. Because the Anycubic Photon Mono X, I have 2 of those. When that first came out, it was like, I want to say $900 almost, and they dropped it to like $799 like this year. And then now they also have it on this regularly rotating discount where it drops down to $600. Like that's supposed to be one of the best 3D printers on the market right now, and it's going for less than $1,000. And hell, it's almost dropped down to the point where you can get it for $500. And that's like an 8K. That's an 8K resin printer. That is the top of the line. And you don't even need to get that. Most people can get like an Legu Mars Pro 2, which is like what, 180, 170. Like it's cheaper in the long run to get a 3D printer, learn how to use that, and just buy the resin on a regular basis. And once you get the STLs, you can just print those babies off left and right. You can print off a whole 2,000, 3,000 point army for less than $20, $30. Like use a whole bottle of water washable resin, and boom, you got a whole army. And that's all, and that'll probably cost you at most at the end of it probably $30 in resin. It's just ridiculous how much cheaper it is to just put in slightly more work into 3D printing your own minis than it is to buy from GW. Like that should not be how it is at all, but it is. It's unfortunate. But
not only that, you get so much better designs.
Yeah, totally, absolutely.
Like the Primarchs, the God Emperor designs they have made look so much more impressive for what you have to buy from Games Workshop. The three units I've seen from this, I forgot what they're called, but this particular tree unit is so detailed, and you get it for such a good price, a good squad for it. And there's better tank designs, just a whole lot more things you can do and have fun with. And for them not allowing to use it in tournaments, I don't see it's a big deal, because most of the time the hobby's just played with you and your friends.
The reason they do that is it's a very surface level solution to the problem that they see of 3D printing taking, like, because their biggest profit margin undeniably is the purchase of minis, right? And if they let people just willy-nilly use 3D printed models, then that hurts their profit margin. And so a surface level solution that they've chosen to go with is, and the one that quite frankly pisses people off the most, is just simply banning the use of third-party 3D printed minis. They ban that, which quite frankly they choose that because it's the easier, quicker solution than just simply working with 3D printing to improve the hobby. Or if they really are determined not to work with 3D printing by selling STLs or something like that, then at the very least they can find ways to encourage people to buy their sprue plastic injection molded minis. Which, to be frank, sometimes I definitely prefer the plastic minis just because of that initial process of gluing them together, because sometimes resin can be a little annoying to glue together. But use super glue, it's no different than using plastic glue or cement glue for regular plastic minis. But instead of, they could just simply be better to the community, be nicer to us, and lower the prices. Like, that's the biggest thing. Just lower the fucking price. You don't even need to be like kiss ass about it. Just say, okay, yeah, we know that people are 3D printing off proxies. To hopefully encourage you guys not to do that, we're gonna start lowering the prices of minis, and we're also gonna do better to support the community on that route, because we understand people are choosing alternative routes. You got to make what you produce more attractive, and you don't do that by increasing the number on the price tag. You do it by lowering it. And again, garnering loyalty by not only doing that, but also being more respectful and open with the community. I would say if you do that, lower the prices, and you full on go, okay, yeah, bring whatever 3D printed proxies you want to bring, as long as they relatively match the mini that they're proxying and they're in the same base size, go ahead. But we're going to lower the prices, and we're going to ask politely that you guys use our minis. And people, just that alone, I think a lot of people would be like, okay, yeah, that's fair, and would choose to use the official models over the proxies just because of the way they're handling it. But they're not doing that. They're actively they're treating it like it's a war on two fronts. Ironically, they see their own audience as the other. They see them as a competitor to themselves that they have to fight against, and with that mentality, they're gonna bring down the hobby.
Yeah, they're too damn fucking. They're on the mindset they're going to die on this hill, and if they don't change that, the hobby most likely will lose a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. And the analogy of them dying on a hill is a little accurate. they are seemingly determined to die on it. But
If they don't change their ways or at least adapt to at least become more lenient about it, the hobby won't die. That's without a doubt. It won't die, but it won't be as popular as it is right now. And I think it's just gonna have a very dire effects where it won't become popular for a very long time again.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And what's worse is seeing because I have been in this position with other franchises that it comes to a point where you're just you had some of the most diehard people that would support you now don't care anymore, and anything good or do anything that's good, they don't care. It's just because you did good, you already abused them. They will not come back, even if you do something good.
Yep. If you slight someone hard enough, they will say goodbye and they will not come back, even if you improve. All right, thank you, Kaiju Blood God. Thank you so much, man, for coming on. You pretty much answered your thoughts about the 3D printing side of it too. So I appreciate you coming on the open mic, and thank you for answering the questions. Anything you want to say before you head out?
No. That's it, man. It was nice to talk to you, man.
Nice to talk to you too. I'm very happy you came on. All right, gotta pull someone else in, but hope you enjoy the rest of the stream if you're watching, and if not, hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, man.
No problem. All right. Before I bring on the next person, I gotta grab a drink. And let me catch up with chat real quick here. The healthiest drink in the world, like a soda. Captain Machine. Let's see. I'm gonna welcome a couple people who joined the chat that were there that wasn't before. Excuse me. Welcome, Captain Machine, Calsonic, Gunner MWP, you were there already, and Calcio. Wait, no, Calcio was here already. Alright, no, so just Calsonic and Captain Machine. Welcome, guys, welcome. While the chipping away of the lore is of concern, my lack of favor to 40k these days is just down to pricing. I mean, yeah, that is the biggest factor. It definitely is. I think a lot of people could ignore because a game like this, because of a game like 40k and Age of Sigmar and things like it, there is definitely that thing where you can ignore the lore and still enjoy, because commonly it's agreed upon there are 3/3 of the hobby, right? You have the lore, which is 1/3. You have the miniatures and painting the miniatures, that is 1/3, and then actually playing the game is another third. You can take out one of the three and still have an active investment in the hobby. You can, if the lore keeps getting butchered, okay, fine, fuck the lore. Let the lore lie. Enjoy what you did of it. Reread the old books and ignore the new stuff. That's fine. But that means you could focus on the miniature painting, and you can focus on the tournaments and playing the game, right? And that's hard. And when you kill off those two because you make the avenue to invest in them too expensive, you've now killed all 3 avenues of investment into the hobby, into the community, which they seem satisfied to do, which is very annoying and causes rage. So I get you with it. I get with you there. Yeah, they just raised the prices a couple days ago. Correct. Yeah. Wait, what's the new price of the battle wagon? Before I pull in the next person, I just want to check that. I'm just pulling up the story real quick. I want to say it. 110. Wait, wasn't it 80? I swear it was 80. 110? The fuck, man? That was 80, wasn't it? I swear that was $80. Actually, no, I think it was cheaper. I could be entirely wrong, but wasn't it like... Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like $80 before. And what, 110? The battle wagon sucks! Bro, that fucking sucks. Temporary alien, welcome to the open mic. I'm gonna pull in the next person, but fucking A, man. 110? It's a terrible unit. Like, the only use of a battle wagon is it's a heavily armored truck. Like, it's got zero use for battle. All of its weapons are... trust me, I took a battle wagon to my last tournament. They fucking suck as a weapon on the battlefield because they're inaccurate as fuck. I mean, it's ballistics and orcs, but even its melee sucks. It's 5 up on a weapon skill and it's 5 up on a ballistics. It's a shit weapon. It's a decent basically it's a better truck for transport. It's a better transport than it is an actual heavy support. That's fucking A. All right, pull in the next person. Blast Gunman, how about now? I know you said pulling you in causes things to bug, but I can't pull you in any other way to the call. Alright, so that's looking like it's not working. Okay, how about this? Blast Gunman, can you hear me?
Hello.
Blast Gunman, can you hear me? Yes? Alright.
Hear me?
Alright, let me try pulling you into stream call one more time. If it doesn't work, then I'll
Hear you.
I don't know, I'll pull you down to a different call. But let's let me try one more time to pull you in. Alright, can you hear me? Nope, fuck, that's not working. Alright, so we're gonna go to a different call. Alright, Blast Gunman, we're gonna have our chat in, and I'm gonna ask no one else to join it, please. We're gonna go down to the Weebs chat.
Oh.
Yeah, we're gonna go down to the Weebs chat, Blast Gunman. You can see that, I assume. We're gonna go down there. Nobody else join, please, and I'll go back to stream call. All right, thank you.
All right.
All right. This is the only workaround I got for this. So what a weird bug. I've never seen that before. Like, pulling someone into a call causes that glitch. I've never seen that. That's new. All right, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello.
Okay, there we go, finally. How you doing, man?
Yeah, 3 times the charm.
It's like fifth attempt. Anyway, how you doing?
Yeah, it could always be better, but could be worse. I'm living in Michigan.
Fair enough. All right. So, any like general statements you want to make before I throw the 3 questions your way?
General statements about the hobby or just in general?
Could be either.
I honestly see a lot of the fandom just being demoralized about a lot of stuff on many fronts. Magic players are just accepting whatever's being thrown out. D&D is eating whatever it can from whatever book's thrown out. The Games Workshop, whatever model comes out, people still buy it.
Yep. I would say I would agree with that statement.
Just apathy all around.
I mean, yeah.
But that could just be where I'm from. I don't know if it's all across the hobby.
I would agree that it is kind of across the hobby. I mean, I can't speak for the BattleTech folks, but a lot of the BattleTech folks really love BattleTech, and they really like, as far as I've heard, that the company that produces BattleTech related stuff, they even have STLs that they sell to people. So even they've kind of updated with the times, and they've done that before GW. So
because they're so small that they can take that kind of hit.
Yeah. If anything, it's more affordable for them.
Oh yeah.
Because they don't have to do as much of the production part side of things, so they can save money.
Oh, that's the biggest thing. You can't order a lot of not Games Workshop, BattleTech minis from big distributors.
Yeah.
So, first question.
All right. First question: what are your thoughts of the modern hobby? It has been up to this point, but this can be specifically to do with GW related stuff, 40K, Age of Sigmar, Warhammer Fantasy, etc. or it could be the entirety of the mini wargaming sphere. Like, how do you see like the hobby as a whole being addressed, how it's being interacted with in the modern day? How do you see it going right now?
I, from the production standpoint of Games Workshop pumping out stuff, it's lazy. I don't see it going well. They're not making enough rule books or models to excite people to keep that hype train going. Only the most rabid fans are drooling at the one Primaris Lieutenant that's coming out every other month.
Yeah, and said rabid fans are getting taken advantage of by scalpers.
Oh yeah, it's that bad. And on the Age of Sigmar front, a lot of armies are not languishing because surprisingly their rules are a little bit more forgiving on book lag. I'm playing Ghosts, and they were one of the first books released after first edition, and they're still competitive.
That's good.
But on the other sides of the hobby, it's I'm gonna have to repeat this apathy. A lot of people are just either accepting or they're surprisingly hunting down new games like Frostgrave. A lot of people who played 40K or Age of Sigmar are looking for new game systems, and I'm happy for it.
Yeah,
there might be a change of the guard soon.
I myself am very much related to that, but as opposed to seeking one out, I'm producing one slowly, and by the time I finally get first edition out of Warglaive, that's with my luck, it'll be like 2 years down the road. I keep trying to get it out faster, but I don't want to rush anything, and I'm a one-man army, so
yeah, don't rush a thing. It's better to have a good product than have a very hodgepodge product. I've seen so many Kickstarters with very confusing rule sets come out. They seem like good ideas, but on the whole, it would take like 3 hours to play a 500-point game comparatively to 40K.
Yeah.
And but yeah, on the hobby side, that's just the games. The hobby, I think Games Workshop is doubling down on everything hobby. Paints, brushes, terrain, surprisingly.
Yeah. Actually,
there are other companies.
One part of it I haven't brought up with the other two folks, and I kind of feel bad I didn't. But I'll bring it up with you. With Warhammer Plus, like that was something I wanted to bring up a couple times. Like how has that affected the hobby, or the community specifically with 40K and Age of Sigmar? Would you say that had any effect, good, bad, or middling?
Oh, it took a shotgun to the knees of creators.
Absolutely.
And that's just on the creator side of things. And people are still afraid. I know some YouTubers, not personally, but some painting YouTubers who stopped painting Games Workshop minis and gone to third-party stuff because they don't want to deal with it.
Oh yeah, I definitely understand that. I mean, my channel is now just a general gaming channel as opposed to what it used to be, which is a full 40K channel, mainly because I just felt so sick and like that apathy you spoke to earlier. When I started my channel with 40K content in mind, my idea was, okay, I'm going to enjoy talking about the minis, talking about the latest rules changes. I'm going to finally start getting to play more games. I'm gonna cover the lore. I was really gonna go wholesale into investing in it. And one of the first things majorly that happened after I started doing that was, and I don't want to get down it because it's very politically related, unfortunately, but it just to like mention it as part of the apathy aspect is Arsh got hit with one of his I can't even say because he's had so many, but he got hit with a major controversy where people were attacking him, and people were going after him and going after part of the 40K community because they watched his lore videos. That happened, and I got involved in that, which was chaotic. And then after that, if my enjoyment of the actual hobby took a dip, because that's when I started getting death threats via my email. That's when I started interacting more with the political ideologues that were starting to infest the community more. And that's, and then I also started, because I was a content creation channel now, I also started to pay closer attention to the price changes, the gouging, the business side of what GW was doing. and that caused me a lot of apathy to see them continue to increase the prices and watching them make terrible businesses. Things I was naive to as just a hobbyist. Once you become a content creator, because you're obligated to, you actually notice it more, and it causes a lot of that apathy you spoke about. So,
oh yeah, I want to become in business. That's what I'm going to school for. And even when I was in high school, I realized when the first price hikes hit, I paused thinking, this isn't inflation. They're accounting for 2 or 3 years of inflation every time they jump up. That's not a sound business decision. You're supposed to have cheap things to get people in, and then you have big expensive things people save up and buy for one of.
Oh yeah, and they also charge. The thing is, they like the amount that they charge Australians.
Oh, I think that's a personal British hatred.
It has to be because
yeah.
you can't make a business argument for it because inflation makes no sense because their currency isn't too far off from USD, but yet they almost get charged double than what we do, and they almost get charged triple than what British players get charged for some things.
Oh yeah, and if you compare that to Japan, it's not the same. Japan does not have that high of a price gouge. So some Games Workshop executive out there is just looking at a picture of his daughter thinking, why'd you have to marry that Aussie? Why'd you have to marry that Aussie?
Yeah, it's got to be. Like, I feel so bad for Australian players. Like, I've seen the price tags. I've done the conversions. It's fucking ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. But on the Warhammer Plus thing, from the fan side of things, I know people who just see it as, I'm getting a model, and then everything else is other. And after that was the first month when it came out. Now a lot of them are like, yeah, I'm not going to do this again, because they're starting to think I might not get that model until next year. They're not probably going to get the model. I don't think they're going to get the model at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they maybe if I think if Warhammer Plus had done well, they probably would have. But because it's going under, and GW, even through their thick-headedness, are recognizing that.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, if that happens, you're going to get a lot of people demanding card buybacks, and a lot of contract shit is going to hit Games Workshop. That is one part of it that people went in this service for. That's why you don't see Netflix or Disney Plus giving you physical things. They give you, like, here's an extra channel, here's a new movie. They don't give you physical things because they can't provide that thing. They're liable.
Yeah.
Games Workshop is going to be shot in the knees for this.
Oh, absolutely. And sad thing is, though, is in terms of their profit margin, even if they do get hit with some legal backlash for that, for not, like, supplying what they do, I don't know, like, with the track record it has been, I think at best some people will threaten to go to court against them, but won't actually do it. When if someone does, which I hope,
it's most likely going to be class action because of the amount of people. They just have to say this many people didn't get it, and that's what's going to hit them. But more importantly, this is going to show their already very shaky investors this has been a bad business decision. That's a lot of the investors are already looking at this like, why? And Games Workshop has been prompting everything up, like, oh, we're doing good, we're doing good, we're doing good. I mean, I think it was Arch who showed all the padding they did just to show off their stuff. They counted YouTube, they counted Facebook, they counted their own subscription service. Even with all this padding, they're not making a lot of money from it. And this might kill it. And I hope it kills it.
I do too. Like, I think the best thing for this hobby and for this community, quite frankly, is for it to stop going mainstream, and to do that, the company has to take a big hit where it can't afford to continue marketing itself very well, and it needs the company itself needs to be taken down a peg, if not taken out, because quite frankly, I think it'd be better if the community took over.
I believe that too, but I'm kind of half and half on that. I think Games Workshop's original idea of farming out their IP to movie producers, TV show executives, that can work. But when
It
Games
can.
Workshop, yeah, it can. But I mean, I was excited when Eisenhorn was kind of hinted at, because I believed that if you give that to a proper director, it'd be fun. But if Games Workshop has too much control, we've seen what happens. Look at the. I'm just gonna.
I mean, we've seen
throw
what
any-
happens when someone takes the leftovers of their ideas and makes it something else with StarCraft.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, what didn't that become
They
the
make better
greatest
stuff.
one of the greatest RTSs of all time, with its sequel being following up in suit?
Oh no, yeah. It's that would actually be hilarious if Eisenhorn just goes into the shadows and we get some generic, in the grim darkness of the future, a psychic must fight against the evils that is man. I'd watch that.
I watched too. If it's the same story with just some of the names changed around, fuck it.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't see Warhammer Plus surviving any longer because it destroys the community. That's what you need. Every hobby needs a grass-fed community. You can't
Absolutely.
astroturf this shit.
True.
People have tried. Look at Overwatch.
Oh god.
They tried pumping so much money into that to make a tournament scene. It died the moment that they started letting off some of the gas.
I mean, yeah, like that's the thing. That's 100% true. Because it's one thing if the community builds itself up and then asks for something like that, and asks for like a tournament setup, and it even sets up their own. If they do that, then then the audience has already displayed their investment into doing it, and also they've garnered that attraction themselves. The Overwatch example you use is actually very perfect because they artificially tried to create that, and the reason, and theoretically, if you just look at if you just write the idea down on paper, the company doing it as opposed to the community doing it should invoke the same investment, right? If anything, it should invoke more because they have more marketing power, they have more budget power. But the reason it doesn't, and this is the thing that is often not factored in, is the hands-on involvement of constructing it. If the company constructs it themselves, if they build up that tournament scene themselves, it's just seen as a add-on to the company, and the company just kind of created it, and something the audience is available to them, but they have no investment in it because they had no involvement in its build. They have investment in the game maybe, but they have no investment into the actual tournament scene or the esports scene because they had no involvement in its production, only in its After Effects.
Yeah, there's also a sense of just lies to it. You don't know if this person's actually winning. It could be just WWE all over again, where it's who's going to lose, who's going to win, how it's going to go out.
Yeah, it's scripted.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the fear of it all. And I'm just going to dovetail that into the new tournament scenes Games Workshop's trying to promote. This may be a little bit unfounded, but if they start going the same route of hammering every content creator that makes something similar to their stuff, what's stopping them from hitting a tournament that has their models in it, profiting from their IP?
Nothing.
Yep. That's my fear, and if that happens, I think that's the death nail of it. Games Workshop's out of business because these tournament players spend, I want to say, 3 cars worth of money a year on their armies. Every time a new army comes out that's the new hot, they buy it.
Oh yeah, and that competitive spirit does keep that investment going. But yeah, that's I don't know. Like
a lot of these.
Oh, go ahead.
A lot of these competitive players are also fiercely loyal to their local tournaments. I mean, the Michigan GT, the one I go to, a lot of big players go there because they know the guys there. If you screw over someone's friends hard enough, you've just made 2 enemies.
Yep.
It's just going to cascade into that more and more.
Absolutely. Which kind of leads into the next question, which is, and you've already partially answered it, but where do you see the hobby as a whole, and that includes GW, and 40K and Age of Sigmar and stuff like that? Where do you see the tabletop wargaming hobby going into the future as a whole?
I have 3 ideas of that. It's either going to be 1, the worst case scenario, they're going to be bought up by Hasbro. it's going to be that. I remember seeing an old comic where it just shows the Games Workshop executive looking at the picture of the future. He says, "What's going on? Are they playing 40K? They just have their phones." "Oh yeah, it is. They just paid $50 into a phone, and one guy won, one guy lost." The guy just cries because he lost his company. That's where it's maybe gonna go, but Games Workshop is not in a position to sell itself right now. No one wants to buy them.
Well, Hasbro might. And
No, they've tried.
did they? Like, was there an actual attempt? I missed that.
Yeah, that was a while ago, before they got the Hasbro executive on their board.
Oh, okay. That was forever ago. Okay, then. All right. I think I know what you're talking about then. I was thinking like recently there was an attempt and it failed or something.
No, but in business terms, yeah, that's pretty recent.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
in business terms, but like chronologically, from my perspective, like
chronologically, I think this is like 10, maybe 13 years ago. It was a while back. Route 2, Games Workshop is humbled, and they have to file for bankruptcy. They're barely functioning, and they have to build it back up from the ground up. Which I'd say would be a good scenario, because they would have to build back goodwill.
I would say for me that's almost the optimal scenario, because it knocks them out of the mainstream and back into niche, which is where this hobby should remain, in my opinion, at least to maintain its integrity and maintain its better elements.
Yeah.
But also it then encourages the company to start, like, because they had that fall, they can look back. It forces them to see what they did that caused that fall and fix the mistakes. And preferably they would realize that the pricing, they gotta adapt with 3D printing being a factor. Pissing off the community. They gotta recognize that that's a huge part of why they still sell minis at the rate that they do is loyalty, because there are so many third-party miniature producers that you can use for proxies. So many other companies that make higher quality products. A huge, I would argue, a massive part of what keeps 40K up is either unawareness to the alternatives or loyalty to the hobby.
I would say it's not just loyalty to the hobby, but loyalty to your local game store.
Well, that's a part of the hobby. Like going to tournaments are a massive, like a whole third of it. Like playing the game and playing in tournaments and playing in leagues, that's a third of the hobby right there.
I know, but not loyalty to Games Workshop.
Correct,
I don't know a single person who just goes, Games Workshop is my love.
I don't know of anyone who said that, but I know of some people who have snitched to the company when someone exposed the NDA.
Oh, yeah.
So, can't exactly say that there's no one out there who's not shilling for the company.
Yeah. But, yeah, the third one is the most unlikely, but I would die and roll in my grave if they did this. They realize what's going on, they put down what they're doing, and try to immediately start going after the fandom as, we're sorry, we're doing all this, here's this, basically prostrating themselves to the fandom, trying to do anything they can to get goodwill.
Yeah, it's probably the most unlikely, I would agree, but
yeah,
I would definitely, I wish that would be the case, 100%.
I don't see them doing that, because that would include lowering prices, that would include creating models that people actually want. And a big thing would be, for good size of the fantasy hobby, bringing back fantasy Warhammer.
Oh yeah.
And not flanderizing it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've heard. Here's the thing. Like, I was never a fan of fantasy. I got into the hobby through 40K. I love Warhammer 40K. I even like Kill Team with a couple of games I played of that. I love 40K, the mythos and the universe. When it comes to fantasy, because I have the benefit of knowing how the hobby works, but not being invested in those universes and invested in those two play schemes, I get one of two things, and I get one more often, which is the Warhammer Fantasy fans shit down the neck of Age of Sigmar. I would say I rarely hear it not referenced as Age of Shitmar. Rarely hear it not phrased as that.
Yeah.
And And the few times I've had the pleasure of meeting a Age of Sigmar fan, they speak to how they like the game. They think it's fairly balanced-ish, and they think the models are good. The new models for Age of Sigmar look good. You know, I've heard like stuff like that, but
Yeah, I'm somewhat in that camp. I have ghosts. I like how it plays. I like the models. The lore is the laziest generic fantasy stuff you could imagine.
which is sad, right? Because from the bits and pieces I picked up of fantasy's lore, it's fucking nutty as hell, but awesome.
Oh yeah, yeah. Fantasy lore is surprisingly deep and varied. In this, there are 7 realms, each ruled by a different god, and Sigmar is going to unite them all because he's the good guy. But the Chaos Gods are the bad guys, and Nagash is also a bad guy, and the Orcs are also the bad guy. By the good guys. They look like Space Marines.
Oh my god.
I'm not even exaggerating that much when I'm saying that.
No, I get that. I've heard the same gist of Sigmar's backdrop, and yeah, it does sound very unappealing. But
it is, but the models are amazing in my opinion.
oh yeah,
It's that one golden cherry on a pile of shit.
all right. So So I guess we've touched on it a little bit, but I'll suppose it. So when it comes to 3D printing's effect on the hobby sphere, we've talked a lot about how with the other people who popped in the call. I've talked a lot about how it affects GW specifically, but I want to. If you just want to talk about the GW effect, that's fine.
Oh no, I played D&D too, and I'm probably going to bring that up more.
Okay, that'll be good.
Yeah, 3D printing is amazing for all these hobbies. It is going to force many of these companies to focus on rules. Games Workshop, as a model company, is either going to have to create models at such a cheap or amazing rate that we're not probably going to see, or they're going to have to make rules to incentivize people to buy the rule book and then play with their models.
Yeah,
that's what I'm going to see within probably 10 years.
I think you're being I think you're being very conservative with that number, because I think it's going to be less than 5. Because as it is, I just use a couple examples for.
I'm using 10 as in worldwide, not just America.
Oh, okay, worldwide.
Worldwide, I'm
right now. I don't know if you know about them, but One Page Rules. Do you know about that group?
Oh yeah, One Page Rules. That's one thing I'm pointing to is they have amazing models. They have fantastic rules, and I know a 40K group at my store who just play that.
Yeah, and I've been printing off quite a few of their models. I actually have a full dwarf army printed off, 3D printed from One Page Rules, and the quality is fantastic, and I love it. I love the aesthetic. And again, like you said, the rules are silly simplistic. People are already building full games via the avenue of 3D printing, and it's successful. Like One Page Rules Patreon is immense. Like there's a lot of people on there. And
I'm on their Discord too. I don't have a 3D printer, but I just love looking at all their stuff. Yeah, gloat.
Well, I have 2 because I'm also starting my own tabletop war game in the future.
Oh, I know.
So that's a business investment.
Yeah, look at the successes of others and don't look at the failures of Games Workshop. That's the only thing I could say.
Yeah, that's why, like, constantly when it's brought up by people who are defensive against 3D printing, the 2 most common arguments I hear against 3D printing in terms of the hobby is don't 3D print, you're stealing, and if you keep 3D printing proxies, then GW will fall, and that'll mean the death of the hobby. And then they constantly use the meme of congratulations, you played yourself. That's the most idiotic response I have heard, because I've said this many times, but let me say it one more time. GW do not control the hobby. They want you to think they do. Wow. Yeah, they own the IP, but they can't tell me I can't play a game of 40K. They can't tell me
they control are the models.
Yeah,
they control what models they sell. They control the rule book, but guess what? I have old edition rule books I could play.
Mm-hmm.
There's not going to be a Games Workshop assassin stopping me from playing 5th edition 40k.
Exactly. Like if they go under tomorrow, people act like, oh, if they go under tomorrow, we'll never see a game of 40k ever again. Bullshit.
Oh. What you're going to get is a bunch of very, very dedicated people, and I'm choosing my words carefully because I might say something wrong here.
That's fine.
Just create a small little group, and everyone will say they're the rule commission. They're going to make the new models. They're going to make the new rules. We trust them.
Yeah, like the community will pull itself together and will fill in the gap. And I think they'll fill in the gap way better than GW is filling their own gap right now, which sounds wrong wording wise. But...
I mean, to be fair, they made their own crack across the universe.
Yeah, I mean that's like one of the most common quote unquote arguments against 3D printing I hear. The other one I hear is the quality of 3D prints or 3D printing is not up to par with GW models.
That one I hear because people don't toy around with their 3D printer enough to know the settings or how to actually 3D print high quality things. They know how to 3D print the little toys, the little tugboat, but they don't know how to 3D print a high definition model that you want to paint and build.
Oh yeah, and it's just so dumb because the number of models I printed off that look 10 times as good as GW's models is immense.
Oh yeah, and the problem with Games Workshop models is they have to have flat surfaces. They have to have smooth surfaces. They can't have a lot of crevasses and all that because it's injected molded.
Yeah.
I mean, my ghosts are mostly just wisps of air and all that, and they break like a motherfucker each time. I pick one up, it breaks.
Lots of repair glue.
Yeah, and I know someone who 3D printed ghosts, quote unquote, and they have a lot more connection points to the base. They have a lot more connection points to all the wisps, and it's just as good.
Yeah, exactly. Like 3D printing, in my opinion, is what's going to keep this hobby alive. Way longer than the companies that produce the games, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, it's going to be the death nail of Games Workshop as a model company. That's the one thing a lot of people keep on forgetting. Is Games Workshop is not a game company. They're a model company.
Mm-hmm.
And that explains why they don't care about balance or rules.
Absolutely.
Hell, I played against one of Games Workshop's beta testers, and I won turn 0.
Nice.
He was playing Harlequins, and he charged 2 of my Hellhounds with half his army. They exploded and killed that half of his army that charged the Hellhounds.
I wish you had I wish there was like a video of that. Like I would love to see that battle report. It's like the shortest battle report in history. 3 minutes.
He shot them. He didn't kill them with his shooting. He charged. He knew what they were, and he bragged the entire time. I'm a Games Workshop beta tester. They sent me the Eldari Webway Gate as a promotion piece.
Talk about that. I don't think that's a brag, but that's could just be me.
He wasn't. He stormed off salty, and I never saw him in that store again.
I wonder why.
And I play against professional Harlequin players, and they know you don't charge the flamethrower tank at all. It's just, if that's what Games Workshop says is game balance, I would rather have you be in charge of just one faction than give another fanboy another faction and just let you all run wild with your faction. That sounds more balanced.
To be quite frank, I think that would actually end up resulting in more balance than GW trying to balance all of them together.
Yeah, because it's balanced around Space Marines. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, Space Marines are a bitch right now. They're the Swiss Army knife in all the right and wrong ways.
Oh yeah, they're too expensive in the wrong places, and they're too cheap in the right places.
Yep.
And then you have the flavor of the month. Like I think right now it's Eldar because they just came out. Tower just gonna get nerfed in I think next month.
Oh yeah, like
that's how it goes.
Whenever they buff an army, I kind of make this observation. I don't know if I don't have all the information in front of me to really confirm it, but sometimes it feels like they buff an army just because it feels like maybe they have like overstock in their warehouses, and they're like, all right, we need to sell more.
Completely the reason too.
We need to sell more of these minis. So instead of increasing decreasing the price, what they'll do is increase the stats in the rulebook with an FAQ, and then people will buy that up, and then they'll immediately nerf it.
They also do that by putting them in the start collecting boxes. You get like the big model that they have too much of, and then a couple of the models that you want. They don't have to upgrade the model. They just have to throw in something you need, and you can only get in that start collecting box or that collecting box.
Yeah, RIP to start collecting boxes because those are going away.
It was the cheapest way, and yeah,
they was such a good way too.
Oh yeah, it was that or the Christmas bundles.
Oh yeah,
and they used to be one for each faction, I think, way back in the day. Now it's what, Space Marines and 3 others.
Yes. Usually.
And sometimes you get.
Yeah, I think this last Christmas wasn't it Eldari, Space Marines, and
Necrons.
Yeah.
Yeah. This year was 3. Yeah, this is the smallest year they've done in a while. Oh no, there was also Sisters.
Oh wait, was there?
Yeah, there were Sisters too.
Okay, so Sisters also got a big box. That's good though. Yeah. Sisters deserve more boxes.
Yeah. Well, a few times I actually praised Games Workshop. They came out with Plastic Sisters.
Yes. Too bad they still can't model female faces to save their lives.
I swear one of them has an Adam's apple.
I mean, I think you're right. All right, man. I got one last call up there. No, Caboose jumped up there. All right, so thank you so much, and also thank you for the patience of the technical issues.
It's on my end. It's on my end. I'm sorry.
No, that's perfectly fine. It was an amazing conversation, man. Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Best of luck on your hobby. Best of luck on your endeavor in making a game. Death to Games Workshop. Praise to Warglaive.
Hell yeah. All right, thank you, man.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, I'm going to run to the bathroom real quick. I will be right back, and I'm going to pull Build Alchemist in because he's the one that's been waiting for the longest bit, I think. I will be right back. I'll be right back. 1 second, guys. All right, I'm back. He left us. But that's not what I'm gonna do. All right. I don't know if you were intentionally trying to make a Jurassic Park Jurassic Park reference. Anyway, I grabbed this. Oh no! No! My spy tower on my battle wagon is damaged. I'll glue it back on after this. Yeah, that's my battle wagon, which apparently now I'm holding $110 model now. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh fuck, dude! Like 110, Jesus. You were okay. We're on the same wavelength. All right. I'm gonna pull the Build Alchemist in. Let's do this. Alright, Cam. Oh, whoops. Oh, anyway. Cam Caboose, I meant to pull in the Build Alchemist. Do you mind if I pull him in? I accidentally pulled you in.
That's fine.
Sorry. Build Alchemist. How you doing, man?
Good.
Right. I'm doing pretty good. I've loved the engagement on the open mic conversation about the hobby today. So any general statements you want to make before I throw the 3 questions your way?
Not really.
Alrighty then. First question. What do you think of the tabletop wargaming hobby as a whole? And if you want to, you could specify GW and 40k and Age of Sigmar / Warhammer Fantasy. But what do you think of the modern, current, present-day state of the hobby right now?
So are we referring to just like the game itself right now, or like the hobby overall?
Hobby overall.
So I think the hobby. Oh, one second. I'm just trying to collect my thoughts.
No, it's okay. Take a breather.
So like the it's kind of weird because like the hobby is naturally trying to grow at a kind of absorbent pace. The GWs seems to be doing everything they can to kill it.
Yeah, they're definitely hurting their own growth. I will agree with that.
Yes. And I feel like the biggest thing going forward, like it's going right now, is all of these channels popping up doing like lore and interest in the hobby and all that stuff. Super cool. At the same time, the constant influx of new people, which I think might have been spurred on by other hobbies kind of falling apart. Like what happened with Star Wars, where it kind of went down the drain. And all of that influx has caused kind of strife within the community, manifesting in various different growing pains, like you said earlier.
Yeah, that has definitely been a big issue with GW's motions towards moving the game to the mainstream. Although, like you said, they do actively hurt their own active growth as it continues. But yeah. So with that said, what do you think about the future of the hobby?
So I kind of think we've already hit the peak. Like it's not going to get any bigger. And I think it's all downhill from here, pretty much.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the more likely that you're probably right. I won't say it's impossible for it to get bigger or improve. I do think that is possible, but I do agree that in terms of likelihood, this is the peak. We are experiencing the biggest popularity of the hobby and of the genre that it's in, the tabletop wargaming, that it'll ever be. But I do believe that it is going to go downhill. I wish that wasn't the case. I wish that that's not what I believed, but it is, unfortunately.
Kind of think that getting downsized is a good thing, though. I feel like a lot of the problems, like the growing pains, a lot of political drama, a lot of like just like not even political, but like normal drama that comes up between content creators will die down and become less prevalent as the hobby becomes smaller again.
I agree. As I said, one of the benefits of being niche, of being smaller, is you have a more concise and contained audience. So it's much easier to satisfy most of everyone's interest because there's less people you have to try and mitigate what they want. And usually with a niche hobby, everyone has kind of universal truths they hold to it, like universal parts of it that everybody enjoys. Because it's a niche hobby, you inherently have to enjoy certain elements universally to engage in the hobby. And that's the benefit of it being smaller. But with it being bigger... go ahead.
You don't find a hobby and say, I'm going to get into this because you want to change it from the ground up. You get into it because you like what's already there.
exactly. And the people who do think like that, who do think, oh, I want to get into this hobby and I want to change it to fit my either my sensibilities or my ideological sensibilities or what I feel is best for my tastes as opposed to others. I do think that those people need to be kept out.
Oh yes,
Absolutely. Like, gatekeeping has been turned into a negative statement, even though most of the time it's what I find ironic is most of the time the people who do phrase gatekeeping as a negative often use it themselves once they've entered a hobby or once they've entered a fandom.
Yeah.
Which is ironic, but gatekeeping in terms of its practice is a good thing in terms of keeping a community concise, keeping them consistent, and also keeping it unified to prevent divisive forces from entering a hobby is not a bad thing. So I do think that to a degree, gatekeeping is good. Obviously, I do want to establish this before, it's not a universal good. There is a level of gatekeeping that is unhealthy and is bad. Like,
there is a point, even if it is a good thing, there is such a thing as too much of a good thing.
Yeah, like
there are extremes to everything.
Yeah, gatekeeping is good up until the point it becomes about immutable issues. Like, if you're gatekeeping people out because of gender, that is wrong. Race, that is wrong. If you're gatekeeping out people out because of maybe knowledge level, like if someone's brand new to the hobby and you disregard
they're not
them,
know anything.
Yeah, and if you disregard them because they don't know anything on their initial walkway through, that's also a form of gatekeeping that I think is incredibly bad. Because it makes people who are interested in the hobby, who would actually become genuine fans and would actually acclimate to the community quite well if given the opportunity, you kind of kill them off before they get the chance. You kill the flame before it can become a full fire, almost. Mm-hmm. So that's entirely bad. But gatekeeping is a good thing when it comes to keeping out people who are not actually interested in maintaining what the better elements of a hobby. Now, changes are welcome. If someone joins a hobby and they do advocate for improvements, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But when you advocate for change for the sake of change, or change for the sake of an ideological belief, or change because of your sensibilities, that is wrong, and quite frankly, you should not be joining that hobby, because it sounds like you don't actually enjoy it. So that's my clarification about gatekeeping and what I say what I mean when I say gatekeeping.
Yeah, like I even don't think I think like you can let anyone into a hobby even if they have even if someone has radically different beliefs than me, I'm still perfectly willing to play a game with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's how it should be.
Yeah. But it becomes what's the word I'm looking for? It's when you let other people in and then they start trying to kick you out that I run into problems.
Yeah, the subversive elements. Yeah, that's been a problem lately, and hopefully we can combat that, but it'll take some time. All right, so you see it going downhill. How do you think 3D printing is going to affect things, or is affecting things generally?
So, I am definitely a fan of 3D printing. I think it's a positive thing, because the main advantage of having like a big company like industrializing a process is that you make it cheaper.
Yeah.
Right? So if GW wants to compete, if big companies that make tabletop role-playing game or role-playing wargaming want to compete, they have to make their products cheaper or of significantly higher quality. So it forces competition is good, and it forces them to compete rather than just dominate.
Ideally, yes, that is how it, and that's how they should be responding to 3D printing. But as we both know, and as everyone I hope is watching knows, their response to 3D printing is the domination that you just mentioned. They're trying to cut it out as opposed to compete with it.
Yeah, they're little Gestapo forces.
They're trying to knock it out of the running as opposed to having a fair race.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I do think ultimately they will either have to adapt or die. I think that is kind of what's going to happen.
Yeah, that is a fundamental. So far, there's been a fundamental agreement everybody has had that I've talked to today, and it's very refreshing to hear. That I'm not the only one thinking that. Like it is coming down to, if they don't adapt to the new technology of the day, the new atmosphere and the new market of today, that they're going to go under. Now, this has been a truth in business for decades, but it's so ever present now, specifically with their industry, with 3D printing growing as much as it has. And as it is at the tournament I went to last month, and the one same shop is holding another one, is coming 2 weeks from now on Sunday. As it is, I spoke with some of the other tournament players, and there was 16 of us, right? Over half of us, like I want to say like 9 out of the 16 had 3D printers. Like several of them brought proxy models to the tournament. Like, well, the first guy I went up against, all of his minis, quote unquote, because they were Imperial Guard. So, sorry, not Imperial Guard. They were Imperial Knights. Sorry, they were Imperial Knights.
Minis,
They
quote
printed
unquote.
off. That he printed off. These big gigamechs, and he let me like pick up the biggest one, which was incredibly heavy because it's 4K resin. And it's like, whoa. And that's pretty cool stuff. That's pretty cool. And I think that for me showed me that there isn't going to be that much hesitancy. Like one thing I kind of gave credit to, and I shouldn't have, to the people who were kind of anti 3D printing, was one aspect of it was, 3D printing is a hobby into itself. It takes practice, and it's initially very difficult. So some people will not be able to get into it just because of that aspect. But what that tournament showed me is people are willing to put up with the difficulty. And it also gave me the perspective of, we're in a hobby that already requires us to build the minis ourselves with super glue, with cement glue, with plastic glue. We already build that stuff. We already clean up the models by sanding, using sanding sticks and stuff like that to get rid of the mold lines and to get rid of the snip points. We already do that kind of minute maintenance stuff, including drilling gun barrel holes. We already do that stuff. Why the hell is it so out of left field to do 3D printing, which is just a little bit messier?
GW has made us do so much of the construction process that just making the sprues in the first place is not that much of a difference.
Yeah, it feels the exact same process, because when you remove supports from a 3D printed model, sometimes you can even just pull them right off, depending on the thing you printed off. And sometimes you do need to snip them off, but it's the exact same process. The only difference is you do got to wear gloves if you snip them off right after it gets out of the build plate, because it's all got that resin on it. Yeah. But I'd say that's the only major difference. Is it's a little bit messier. That's it. Like it's the resin's it's a liquid, so you get that gooey stuff on you, and it's a skin irritant. But if you wear gloves, you're fine. So I just personally, for me, GW has already kind of trained the average hobbyist to go through all this maintenance stuff. That one added element to that, with the messiness of resin, I think is not going to fundamentally hurt this at all. So I think they've in a way they've actually made it more effective. They've already made us more open to 3D printing, because they've already trained us to do the building and assembling ourselves.
Yep.
So I don't know. So those were the 3 questions. I want to end anything off for.
So just a small thing. I wanted to ask your thoughts on the balance of 9th edition.
The balance of 9th. I haven't looked at every codex. Obviously, not every codex is out yet. In terms of what I've seen on Wahapedia, and in terms of what I experienced at the tournament, at my latest tournament, which was not a high quality tournament, it was a local hobby store. But
yeah,
I'd say the game is incredibly unbalanced. There are it's not so unbalanced that there's one army that'll defeat all others with no difficulty, but the balancing is definitely skewed. Certain armies do almost have a guaranteed win against others. Like if you put a gun horde versus orcs, which is a melee horde, the gun horde will win. I found that Astra Militarum have good enough melee that they can fight off orcs when it does come close to pow time. When you get into melee range, it's not like orcs are guaranteed to win if they get in melee.
Mm-hmm.
But before they do, you do got to deal with the overwhelming firepower of the Militarum. And even if we just go infantry v infantry, Astra Militarum have decent shooting and decent melee. Enough to that they can fight off an orc Wa. So it's not even... so even in a matchup like that, I'd say orcs have a rough time against anything that shoots well.
But remember a few months ago, I think it was a few months ago, orcs were like the thing to play.
Yeah, that's if you're running Beast Snaggers. Beast Snaggers are really fucking good. They're really fucking good. I'm not even saying orcs are not competitive right now. They actually are. But I would certainly point out that, again, they're a melee-focused army.
Mm-hmm.
Their ballistics is dog shit. So that's why I find it weird that the battle wagon is $110. I'm sorry, that's still in the back of my mind. Because this is a shit unit. The best a battle wagon is right now is an overzealous transport. Because it has a 5-up ballistic skill and a 5-up weapon skill. And even if you deck it out like I decked mine out for the tournament, with all the bells and whistles, it's still dog shit. Because you're barely going to make any hits with it. It's not good for shooting and it's not good for melee. So a battle wagon is only good as a transport. A heavily armored one. Now, that's nothing to knock. A heavily armored transport is still useful. But I by no means think the unit itself is good. Its utility might be, but not its overall usage. So that's just like one anecdotal example. But yeah, like orcs sucking. They've always sucked. Before anyone calls me out on that, I do want to acknowledge they've always sucked in ballistics. I'm just saying they suck in that regard. And I don't know if it used to be this way because like I've only played 7th, 8th, and 9th edition now. But their melee used to feel even more powerful, in my opinion. Generally, now it feels like you need to have specific units in the orc army for it to be the most effective. If you don't have those, you are kind of screwed against most of the heavy shooting armies, especially if you're doing something that's heavy armored and shooting, like Imperial Knights. Like if you don't get turn 1 and you don't get to declare your Wa and charge the Imperial Knights, and they get any shooting off on you at all, you're fucked. Unless they roll terribly. So, like using orcs as an example, orcs have always been luck-based, so let's use a different example. Astra Militarum versus Imperial Knights. In my opinion, Militarum have an advantage, because they have firepower and numbers.
Yep, and the terrain rules in 9th are not exactly favorable to Knights.
Yeah, like they're actually quite against Knights. Knights are probably very underpowered right now. So, yeah, I would say that's a big thing. But I guess to try and answer the question overall, without going into every single one-to-one example, 9th edition, like all editions of 40k, except, I'm sure like the older editions, a lot of people argue were really balanced. Based on the editions I've played, 7th through 9th, I'd say 9th is incredibly unbalanced. Not so much so that it's unplayable. It's absolutely playable. Let me stress that. It's okay. It's fun. It's still fun to play. And you can still absolutely get your ass kicked no matter what army you're running. But there are certain power-ups that you do not want depending on what army you're playing.
Yeah, so my I just kind of had this growing perception that ninth edition is like super unbalanced, and I just wanted to see if that was something that other people thought.
Oh no, it's unbalanced. It absolutely is. It's just not to the. I just wouldn't describe it as unbalanced to the point of unplayability. It's still playable. It's still fun to play, but certain pair ups between two armies are very much skewed. Like there are certain armies that have little to no chance of making through. Anyway, hope I answered your question. All right. Did I? Or
You for having me on.
yeah, no, thank you for being on, man. I'm gonna pull in some more people, and yeah, have a good one, man. Thank you.
All right, have a nice day.
You too.
I'm just gonna leave this.
Oh, there. BC, are you so excited, Collins? Yes, I am. Still going strong, still going. I'm gonna pull in the next person. Caboose. Hello.
Hello.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Did you want to be in the call-in, or did you just hang out in the call-in to chat with people, or?
Well, no, sure. Why not? Yeah, you're actually answering some interesting questions.
Yeah, I've been posing 3 regular ones to everybody, just interested to get like the general takes on them.
Yeah.
All right. So, what? Before I ask you the 3 questions I've been asking everybody, what? Do you have any general questions or general statements you want to make?
GW is going to have to embrace 3D printing, or they're going to be completely out of the tabletop market.
All right, that probably answers
They're-
the question number 3 for you.
Well, I'm sorry. They have to. It's just going to become too prevalent. And
Oh, I agree, absolutely.
You know, the average Joe can make a minimum. Yeah, the upfront cost is kind of like airsoft. It's a really big upfront cost, but then it's a very minimum cost to maintain.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, ooh, am I going to pay, you know, what, $150 for a Bane blade? Or $10 worth of resin? You know, it's one of those questions.
Yeah. All right. So I guess question number 1. What do you think of the tabletop wargaming hobby right now in the modern day? Like how would you describe the climate right now?
GW stuff is starting to decline. But that's just natural when you've been the king for, oh god, since BattleTech declined in the 80s, the late 80s.
To quote another dying king of a franchise, no king rules forever, my son.
This is true. And now you see it with the BattleTech Kickstarters and stuff like that are coming back and doing incredibly well and incredibly strong. Because people are, all right, in BattleTech, I pay $25, get 5 mechs, and I can use them all I want for any army, any faction, whatever I want to use it for. Where in 40K, you buy a Space Marine, you have to either be Space Marine or Chaos Space Marine. You can't use them as Guard, you can't use them as Sisters, you can't use them as anything else. They are specifically Space Marines or Chaos Space Marines.
Oh, you mean for like proxying and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a recently fallen chapter, recently excommunicated chapter, so they're not spiky yet. So, because I did that with my first Space Marine chapter. I started adding Chaos units to it just because I wanted to try out the Chaos roster. So, you know, that's the story behind my first chapter.
Okay.
But yeah, 40K is much on the decline because they keep jacking their prices and keep taking models away. Like what I remember when they first did Apocalypse, a Bane blade was like $70. Now it's $150. And you know, you could buy a squad of, I remember when they had the $10 booster pack of 5 Space Marines. You could buy a combat squad of Space Marines for like $10, $15. Now to do that, you have to pay like $35 and get 5. And another reason why I think the hobby is failing is customization and creativity are gone. There is no more, oh, I can really make this cool looking model, you know, and play with them. It's like, no, if it's not all GW parts, if it's not the same kit, if it's not this, it's not that, you can't use it. So creativity is being taken away from a very creative hobby. I mean, if you look at half of the Golden Demon winners, I mean, you know, yeah, you got the normal Imperial Fist winners and stuff like that, but like the what was it? There was a guard regiment that was themed after Deadpool that won. There was the Rusted Necrons that won. You know, a lot of really creative stuff that won all of these awards, and you could still play with on tabletop. You can't do anymore because the creativity has been taken away.
Yeah.
And, you know, oh, this is the model, this is the way it looks, but I want to switch out the... No, this is what it looks like, this is what it comes with. I'm like, that, but that's not fun. You know, I don't like swords. I like hammers. I want my Space Marine sergeants to have a thunder hammer. Oh, they can't carry it anymore. So, you know, it's... They've zapped creativity away from the hobby, which I think sucks because it is inherently a creative hobby.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, kit bashing is a tradition, absolutely, in the hobby. So is using different kits from different series and different different games and mixing them in to create, and also producing your own like green stuff, either sculpting stuff with green stuff or.
It's like what was it? Last Guard Codex. They had a really cool guard. Everybody thought they were coming out with a new guard regiment. No, it's just one guy at GW because, you know, they have access to all the kits who used Age of Sigmar or fantasy, like, you know, fantasy heads with those plumed hats with the feathers and different types of bases for the heavy weapons for a guard army, which is cool. But you can't do that anymore.
Well, no, you can if it's Age of Sigmar or Warhammer Fantasy, you can.
Yes, but you know, a lot of the creativity like that is, all right. Cheap creativity is gone because doing that is expensive. You got to buy the different kits, you got to kit bash the kits and all that whatnot. Cheap creativity is gone, and that's why I think GW really needs to start embracing 3D printers. Are you kidding me? All right, you go to your affiliates, your GW shops, like, all right, we're going to put 6 or 7 3D printers in, we're going to do this. The guy buys the model for a cheap upfront cost, prints the model out right then and there, can play with it on the table. You kidding me? The tabletop would go through the roof if they did that, but they won't because they're too traditional. They are stuck so much in the traditional build model, sell model. They're still stuck in the, we are a model company that sells rules. We are a game company. You know, one of their CEOs years ago said that we are a model company that sells rules. We aren't a rule company that sells models. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing horribly. Sorry.
Yeah. And GW is definitely has always had, and you see it the most right now. I think we see it so much right now, and I think that even the average hobbyist is starting to sense it, if not see it blatantly. It comes with the popularity thing, right? Like GW and 40K and Age of Sigmar are they're at their peak right now in terms of popularity. I mean, the most amount of people ever are checking out and are fans of the hobby right now. We are having a massive influx of people. And with that comes with growing pains, as we mentioned before. But with that also, I think that comes with more, that results in more eyes and more content creators and more figures of the community starting to manifest and starting to report on when the company does shady shit. And I think that's resulting in more and more people seeing the worst elements of GW, which, in my opinion, have always been there, but we're starting to see it more because we simply have more eyes on it. So it's spreading. The word gets spread much easier than it used to. And I suppose that's one of the good things about the hobby getting bigger as we have more people.
Can I tell you a short story?
Define short.
A couple of minutes about an experience I had at a game store back when I started playing 40K.
All right, go ahead.
You know, started playing 40K. You know, I was new to the hobby. People were coming in, and that's what I love about Warhammer, because Warhammer is, to quote he who shan't be named, is for everyone. I mean, I walked in as a sheltered suburban kid. I was playing with guys from the inner city. I was playing with adults. I was playing with, trans kids, gay kids, all of that whatnot. And we were just there to play for 40K. And that's why it breaks my heart seeing all of this subversive stuff try to come in and destroy what is 40K. It's like, no, it's the grimdark future that's been ripped off from Dune and everything else. I mean, shoot, GW literally stole vehicles from G.I. Joe lines for their very first model shoots. That's just what breaks my heart about the hobby, is politics that are infecting it. It's just like, no, 40K is 40K. Let us have this, and everybody is fine. There's no problem at a game store. There is no sex, race, creed, ideology outside of the game world in a game store. You play guard. The planet broke before the guard did. Oh, you play Space Marines, spiritual liege. The memes that come out of that stuff. That's the only politics that are on the tabletop, are the memes that come out of Warhammer. And that's my little rant. I'm sorry.
No, I totally agree with you. Where we differ is I understand why you're downtrodden about it. I mean, I was. That's why I stopped covering 40K as a content creator. Though I cover it now on a more when I have the inkling to basis.
Well, after a conversation a couple of weeks ago, you changed my mind. I'm not giving up.
Yeah.
But I like BattleTech now too.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
I want a guard.
Yeah, I encourage people to check out every tabletop war game, even if it's not a war game, any tabletop game you want to check out. Absolutely. For me, I had a realization when I quit covering 40K as a content creator. I had a realization once I returned it to a hobby status is I still love the hobby. I still enjoy the times it's brought me. I've enjoyed it as a de-stressor. From hard days of work, hard days dealing with other people, or when I just need to decompress. I enjoy nothing more than getting a model kit together and snipping off sprues, gluing them together, or taking them off the build plate of my 3D printer and going through the process of cleaning them up, UV blasting them, and then gluing them together. And then once I get to paint them, that's such a fun amount of time. Just listening to an audiobook, listening to music, or chatting with you guys on Discord. These are times.
Yes, I'm barely 75 miles an hour down the highway.
I mean, this is a hobby I love, and I came to the realization that I'm giving these people what they want if I quit. If I drop the hobby.
That's exactly what you said. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Why am I leaving 40K? No, I was here first. I'm not giving this up without a fight. I'm going to still enjoy what I like. I'm still, the planet broke before the guard did. That sort of stuff. I want the DKOK, get the shovels, boys. That sort of stuff. I'm not giving up on what I love anymore. I'm sorry.
Don't give them the ground that they want you to give.
The fans retreated from Star Wars. The fans retreated from Star Trek. All of that whatnot because of what they were doing. It's like, no, you need to start standing up and fighting. It's like, look, this is bad. It's bad. The reason I hate the Primaris Marines, don't get me wrong, the Primaris Marines are really cool looking. A lot of the models are really cool, and I'd love to have them. But I can't justify owning Primaris because of the lore. It's the exact same thing that happened when BattleTech decided to do the Jihad. Battleship, everybody dies. It's the exact same thing. Oh, Bearsaurus crawl, everybody dies. You know, that sort of thing. It's just, the lore doesn't make sense. And honestly, all GW had to do is say, hey, look, we want to update the Space Marine range, so we're going to redo them as true scale Space Marine and come out with different Space Marine units. And I think a lot of the hobbyists would go, oh, cool.
Yeah.
But a lot of the people that are very anti-Primaris, even owning Primaris Marine models, are because of the lore.
Absolutely.
Doesn't make
And
sense.
when I own Primaris models, I own a lot of them. But I don't look at them as Primaris models. Like, that's how I run with them. I look at them as true scale.
Yeah, exactly. And don't get me wrong, they are really cool models. There are a lot of cool models I like.
Exactly, which is why I always love it when I get into debates with people who are extremely, like Ball, for example. Ball, I don't know if he still thinks this, but for the longest time he said that they looked like shit. I'm like, okay, no they don't. They don't look like garbage. The reason most people say that is because they hate the lore part so much. I don't think objectively speaking, aesthetically, they look bad. I think it's the lore, and I think that colors people's aesthetical look at them. I do think that they are bad lore wise. Absolutely, I agree with that. I hate the lore edition of them. I hate how they were written in basically a bottle.
And not only that, but you know, anybody who's been in the military or has anything to do with any type of modular weapon systems or armor knows that shit does not work like it's supposed to. So that's why, you know, you're giving these Space Marines substandard gear that are basically jack of all trade, master of none, that is supposed to, the same amount of armor can be gravitas or this or that or that or this, just with different add-ons. I'm like, that's not how modular armor works. So, yeah.
To be fair, that enters nitpick category, but...
Oh no, yeah, that's definitely a nitpick.
But that's the thing. That's a fun nitpick, though. Like, it's fun to like bring that up at a hobby store and then like debate it with other people.
Well, yeah.
Whereas we're having less debates like that nowadays in the hobby, and having more debates about like, hey, should there be female Space Marines just for the fucking sake of it? Right? Like that's a debate that's been there for years, and every time, like, I think is whenever people bring that up, I have one simple response every single time. Why it's not in the lore, and why the hell would we want GW to waste energy adding a faction that is already defined in the lore to not be possible, which would require them to rewrite the rules, which we've accepted as canon, when they could just do one simple thing. Put that energy into the genuinely badass female armies that are already in the fucking game. That's how I know when someone who says that is a hobbyist or not. Because to me, you show your true colors when you demand female Space Marines, but then you don't even acknowledge it when someone like me says, why can't we get more female guard sprues? Why can't we get why can't we get more lines added to the Sisters of Battle? Why can't the Sisters of Silence be a full army to themselves instead of an add-on to the Custodes? These are things they can do. These are female badasses that are in the lore that they can add. And if you are someone who is an actual fan of 40K and you want more badass females, guess what? We already have them. They just need to add them to the proper lines.
Well, it's like that, what is it? Inquisitor, Gray Fox, or whatever. She's a badass Inquisitor. And I agree with you. There are tons of armies in 40K that are badass. But the problem you run into with female sprues is if you look at a soldier nowadays in full battle rattle, the only way you're going to be able to tell that one soldier is female is because she is shorter than anybody else in the platoon.
And with guard models, the face is exposed.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you the only way you'll be able to tell if it's female is if she doesn't have her helmet on. You know.
Well, this is where 3D printing actually kind of solves that, because you can have a helmet on, but if the face is exposed, like the guard helmets work, With 3D printing, you can get that detail on the face to like have the pursed lips, have the more rounder features. You can actually have them look female and still look like they fit in the army. This is where 3D printing can actually be implemented by GW to improve their lines.
Oh yeah, and not only that, but and not go old Sister of Battle full on S&M. You got to think that a lot of the calls for female Space Marines were years before we even got an inkling of Plastic Sisters. If GW would have just kept the sisters rolling all along, it would have been fine.
Oh yeah,
because the sisters are badass.
Yeah, and in my opinion, they're more badass than female Space Marines would be, because they have their own unique lore separated from the regular Space Marine chapters. And they also they have an aesthetic unto themselves that is so iconic. Like, you see a sister, you know it's a sister.
Not only that, but Space Marines, after they go through the transformation, they probably still have their twig and berries, but they're not going to use it.
Yeah, like gender is pointless for a Space Marine.
They're basically a eunuch at that point. Yeah, they have it because they need the testosterone production, but they don't use it. They don't. It's not
even the nitty gritty. Like, don't get me wrong, I agree with what you're saying, but it's like the nitty gritty stuff I can like kind of look past. For me, it's the wider implications. Like, the thing is, I don't get why whenever this debate comes up that they always scoff when you bring up Sisters of Battle. It's like, that's a genuine thing to bring up, because Sisters of Battle are far more badass than female Space Marines. You do realize that, right? Because they're just normal humans.
Oh, yeah.
They're just normal humans wearing power armor. What gives them the ability to fight on par, you heard me right, on par with Space Marines, genetic monstrosities. What gives them the ability to do that is sheer force of will.
Not only that, but one of the best characters in what is it? Hell's Reach is that little wizened old lady. All right, it's about time you showed up. Yes, I fought with the Space Marines before. Oh yes, you finally decided to show up. Okay, come with me. That little old lady is Canoness in Hell's Reach. She was a badass. Like, all right, you got your blessing. Get the hell out of here and go do something for once. Like, damn, lady.
Grouchy old lady. Yeah, it's like, again, like, this is something I find that it's just, for me, that's what tells me if you're someone who actually is a fan or not, is with that debate.
Oh yeah, and there are possibilities for female models. I mean, shoot, one of the best loved female guardsmen of all time is Lieutenant Myra. From Space Marine. I think that was her name, Mira.
I think you can find like fan-made STLs of her on Colts, maybe.
She's been modded into so many games, like the original Soulstorm and stuff. She's a hero unit you can actually recruit, and she's a badass hero. But
yeah, I don't want to cut you off too much here, but
no.
I got other people.
You got other people.
Yeah,
I'll talk to you.
Yeah, I'll talk to you again later. Thank you for the conversation, Caboose. Much appreciated, man.
No problem. I'll talk to you later, sir.
Talk to you later. Have a good one.
Bye.
All right, who was fuck crap? I didn't keep track of who's. I'll just pull in BC. Sorry if anyone's been waiting longer. Like, all right, BC, can you hear me? Oh, looks like you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I've been loving the conversations today. So you got any general statements or questions you want to throw out before I throw the 3 questions your way?
Not really.
All right. Okay. I guess we'll just go into them. So what do you think of the tabletop wargaming hobby and its current state in the modern day? Like, what do you think of it right now?
Honestly, just chugging along, really.
So just middling. Like it's not great, not amazing, not terrible, not horrible.
Well, it's kind of weird because if you're going off, let's say, the internet, it's all over the place. But if you're someone like me who just plays it at a local hobby store, eh, it's still going. You have your fun games. Occasionally, you'll have days when no one's doing anything, but it's still there.
That is fair enough. That is a fair point. When it comes to online versus offline, there is definitely it's very different. The climate of it, because if you do more like what you're doing, which is like the offline kind of community, it's definitely a lot nicer because it's more tight knit, it's smaller. It kind of brings back the vibe of it being niche. So, but once you interconnect with like the wider community online, plus the internet having its general attitudes, that's when you kind of run across the more negative aspects. But yeah, that's actually a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, so I guess that's a pretty easy answer to the first question. Question number 2. How do you see the hobby evolving in the future or devolving? Like the pros and cons of how the hobby will progress.
Same verse, sort of similar to the first. As in, I don't. When it comes to mainstream popularity, I do see it eventually start to toning down, coming back down to a niche. But at the same time, those same dedicated fans that have always been there. Like I said, if you only play this, like say at your local hobby store, you'll still be there as long as you have your friends and your other folk to play with there.
All right, fair enough. Nice. All right. Wow, we're really rattling these off. All right. So I guess the final question is, how do you think 3D printing will affect the hobby and does affect the hobby?
Oh, well, now there's an interesting one for me. I don't know if you saw earlier in the chat that I posted, but around the same time we were having all these problems with Warhammer. I had a friend of mine introduce me to the universe of BattleTech, and I thought like, because I've been starting to see more into that, I decided to get more involved in that. And thanks to because I finally decided, you know what, I'm just gonna bite the bullet. I'm gonna get myself some 3D printers. Me and my friend have successfully revived the BattleTech community in my local areas.
Hell yeah, brother. That's awesome to hear.
I think the one of the a sort of proud moment me and my friend had is that our first event we ran for it, I gave away around 50 battle mechs.
You gave away?
Yeah.
Oh, damn, man. Nice.
I didn't want to charge people for it. I'm wanting people to play. I want to make it easier for new people to get in. It's like, hey, so and especially now because even though a lot of people are getting to BattleTech, one of the things that people were running into is that at the time where people were trying to jump into it, the company that runs it, one of the companies that makes the models for it, Catalyst Game Labs, yeah, it was if you want how's the old meme go? Oh man, I want to get into BattleTech, so where do I buy the mechs? Well, that's the thing, you don't. Because the company was still trying to cover the Kickstarter. So if you want a new mechs, well, good luck. You either have to buy them from eBay or wait for them to eventually restock, which took a while.
Damn. I mean, dude, you and your friends deserve a round of applause. I mean, I don't know too many people who just give out free models like that. Then again, I don't know how complex. To be fair, I don't play BattleTech, so I don't know how detailed or how complex the models are. But still, like just giving those out and encouraging people to play, like you were a major boon to the hobby, man. Nice. You deserve a round of applause for that. I mean, genuinely, that's fucking amazing.
Yeah, no, and it would not be the last time I did that. I think I've done that 2 other times. Again, the whole point of, like I said, now you can actually buy the models from Kettle's Game Lab if they finally been able to restock. But even then, I will still encourage people. I can get you models if you're absolutely tight for cash. However, I always encourage you support the official company because at least at the current moment, Catalyst Game Lab has been nothing but friendly to the communities, as far as I can tell. It's almost like a sort of polar opposite with Games Workshop, where with them, now, I don't know how true this is. I've never been told stuff like, hey, listen, they encourage you to basically play however you want. They have rules for, okay, hey, you want to construct your own mech? Here are the rules for that. You want to play using this stuff? Here are the rules for that. And
Yeah,
and
GW
even though
doesn't
I don't
really do
and even
that.
though
No.
I don't really see BattleTech tournaments, at least at the moment, from what I've been told, there was a time where they, hey, I want to bring my own custom made stuff, like rules wise and all that. They allowed it.
Damn. Wow, that sounds a lot better than GW.
Now I don't know if they're doing that now, but like I said, that could be because BattleTech went into, well, much like Warhammer is very niche, but though it's starting to see a lot of popularity right now. Especially has a lot of people that were big into Warhammer moved into BattleTech, like myself. However, I'm not even like much like the other person before me. I'm not abandoning Warhammer, though I am spreading my. It's like, hey, I want to try other stuff too.
Yeah, and I heavily encourage that. Like, I'm interested in trying BattleTech. I just one part of it that I've struggled with is getting my hands on models. Like, for the website I keep getting directed to for like BattleTech stuff is confusing to me. I don't know why. The way things
I
are.
don't blame you because the first time when I tried to buy from their website, as it turns, it is confusing. It's almost like two different sites. Like, hey, I'm gonna go here. Wait a minute, this is an actual site. Oh, it's over here. And then trying to buy the stuff and all that gets confusing.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely want to try it out. I mean, having more war games to invest in, and as far as I've heard it, BattleTech is nowhere near as expensive.
Oh, if all of you've ever played as Warhammer and you wanted to get into BattleTech, it is shocking how cheap it is. I told as I showed to a friend of mine, especially like I said, since I gave away stuff for free to get more people into it. So now it's, hey, if you want, well, the 3D printed stuff I made is very good looking thanks to the 3D printer, the quality of the 3D printer I use. However, the Catalyst Game Lab ones, in my opinion, still look a bit better. And I tell people, I'll give you the free model, but if you still want to support the company, then still encourage you to support your local game shop and all that.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've always been a huge advocate of supporting your local game stores. That's why I still buy Citadel paints, even though I prefer Vallejo, because my local hobby store only sells Citadel. Oh, they actually just started selling the AK paint line thing. So I'm thinking about trying those out as well to help them out. But in terms of buying models, I'm not actively boycotting GW. It's more that I don't want to support them that closely. Like, they piss me off enough. So I either 3D print what I need, or I have a giant pile of shame. So even if I bought stuff right now, I probably could find it in my pile. So yeah, like for me, but the hobby stores in particular, though, they're great places that run by great people typically. And oftentimes they're where you meet up with friends. They're where you play the game with them. Like, it's good to support them. Like, that way that they continue to be there for you. In fact, if you ask me, if you're ever in question about like where your money goes, I'd say supporting local hobby stores. That's a great investment. That's definitely worth the support. Although I recommend do something like me. If you don't want to support GW, don't buy like the models and stuff. Buy paints. Buy basing materials. Some shops have that. Buy some supplementary stuff like that at hobby stores to support them, as opposed to buying the models. Unless like that's the only major thing a particular store sells, then yeah, I'd say occasionally invest in a model or two just to support the shop.
No, I agree. Another thing I would add to that, and this ties into what I keep saying about when me and my friends started to do the BattleTech events. The first event, even though we continue to do events like once every like around the third week of every month, like the third Sunday of every month, because that tends to be when most people have free time to go attend these. The first event still remains the most memorable for me because when we did it, like I said, I printed off all the mechs. We were advertising it to everyone who would be willing to hear. And the way it went was, okay, my friend was at first a bit lackadaisical, a little bit like, we'll be lucky if we see like 5 or 8 people. It's like, I have hope. We might get a lot. By the time that day ended, over 20 people were there. And mind you, our local hobby shop that we tend to play at isn't big. for 20 people there, it was a big deal. Over 20 people there was a big deal.
I suppose it
Though
filled
I-
up the shop, right? With 20 people?
Yep. Yeah, over 20 people.
Oh, over 20. Damn. That's pretty awesome.
Although I would throw out there as a subtle dig at GW that even though it's a small shop, we still had way more tables to play at than a regular game workshop.
No.
But no, yeah. Like I said, for that first event, I printed over, if I recall correctly, over 50 battle mechs, and they were all gone by the time the event ended. And another thing I did to encourage people to have fun and all that is that, again, the people who run the local hobby shop that me and my friend play at, really kind guys. Some of the best guys, some really kind dudes. They started that shop not for profit or anything, just to have fun because they like tabletop games and all that.
I mean, you can do both. I do stand by that. You can make a profit and still like support the community and still like.
I mean, yeah, they're not. I mean, they're not going to give out the stuff for free, but yeah,
honestly,
you give out. But no, I bring it up because as part of the events I try to do is, you know what? What if people get hungry? You know what? And I open the tab with them, so every time we run one of these events, I'll put down at the very least around $50 and tell people at the start, hey, if you're hungry, if you want a snack or a drink, it's on me. Go grab one.
Hey, that's pretty cool of you, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like, hey, hats off to you, truly.
I try my best. But yeah, no, we've been doing that, and we continue to have BattleTech events. And honestly, with how successful they've been so far, I have wondered maybe we can do something similar again for Warhammer, at least for locally, because even though I don't like supporting GW, let me put it this way. To give you an idea how popular me and my friend got BattleTech back in our local area, there were days, Wednesdays or the game nights for Warhammer. There are times where new people would show up, like wanting to get a Warhammer game in, and all they would find are nothing but people playing BattleTech.
That's kind of appropriate, to be honest. I mean, yeah.
It's funny, but at the same time, it's like, well, this is the reason why now, whenever I show up, I try to bring both my Warhammer army and my BattleTech stuff, so that at the very least, if a new person show up, I can still give them a game.
Yeah, and that's pretty awesome. I mean, yeah, that's great news for the BattleTech community. And hopefully 40K can get revived a little bit. It's definitely had its issues, but yeah, you said you do have 3D printers, right?
2. I mainly use one of them, but the first one I had was the Anycubic Photon S, which I got at a great deal, and it worked for a while. Nowadays, it has issues where I just can't get the models to stick to the build plate. But the only reason I haven't tried to fix that is because around the time I started having that, I got my hands on the Anycubic Mono X, the big boy.
Oh yeah, I have 2 of those.
And that one has been. I jokingly told people, with this, my Forge World has declared independence from GW's Imperium.
I mean, I get you, man. I got 2 Anycubic Photon Mono X's.
I still like to mess with the settings and all, but yeah, thanks to that, I'm able to, like I said, as I told another, at this point, with all the STLs I've acquired, the main army I play is Adeptus Mechanicus, so yeah, at the current moment, I can print any unit I need for my AdMech. I don't need to buy any more for it.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I pretty much am in the same boat. I've accrued a lot of STLs for GW stuff. The only armies I would say I don't have an excess of or enough of that I could print off any model I need is probably Knights and Chaos Space Marines. Like, I don't have enough to fill out a whole army to print off, but past them, I have lots of Mechanicus STLs, I have a lot of Custodes STLs, Krieg, Astra Militarum in general, stuff like that.
Real quick, Jonathan, I thought I would throw this out there because just throw this out there because you were mentioning that you recently went to a 40K tournament recently.
Yeah. It wasn't GW official, but it's a tournament hosted by a local hobby store that they're trying to become a GW. They're not trying to become a GW shop, but they're trying to get like certified to run their tournaments. So they're also trying to hold us to their rules. But yeah, I went to one recently.
That's interesting. I bring that up for two reasons. One of the reasons that Warhammer sort of toned down, or at least around my general area, though we are still seeing new people show up, was a while ago. I still think you can look this up online. There used to be a big tournament. It wasn't, as far as I know, it wasn't GW stuff because, well, first of all, they allowed 3D printed stuff, and we're talking like blatant stuff. But there was a big tournament that I always loved going to for the last few years. It was called the Iron Halo. And to this day, those remain some of my favorite 40K highlights because I'll make this pretty clear right off the bat. I am not a very competitive person. It's not that I don't play to win, but when you play against me, expect out there list.
No, yeah, I get you.
I think one of the last tournaments I went to, I played AdMech. Now this is around the time where we got our new. It was around the time when we got our new codex, so we were still having all the buffs and all that. But I did not play the meta. Instead, anyone who faced me saw 2,000 points of Cataphrans. You know those are basically our servitor on tank treads.
Yeah.
Just imagine a half a board covered in that.
That would be awesome visual, but I think that would do terrible in a game.
Surprisingly, I won 2 out of 5 games with that.
Really?
Another one tied, and the other 2 I lost. Though, like I said, I wasn't there to win. I was there to give my opponent to do one of 2 things: get my opponent to go, "What the fuck," or at the very least leave them going, "Okay, I may win this, but that looks really cool."
Fair enough. What detachment did you use for that?
Battalion. I think it was battalion because I was actually trying to remember I think it was battalion because I think at the time, Cataphrans were still infantry. I think at the time, I think.
Yeah. That would work with battalion then. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, damn. Listen, I gotta let you go. Unfortunately, I got some other people still waiting in line. But thank you so much for the conversation, man. And I'm still gonna try and invest and try out BattleTech at some point. Just trying to figure out how to buy the stuff or get the STLs to make proxies at the very least. But yeah, thanks so much for being on, man. Yeah, absolutely. All right, have a good day.
Same to you.
All right, so let's pull in. I think Tang has been waiting the longest. All right, Tang, welcome to the open mic. How you doing, man?
Hello. I'm good, I guess.
You doing good? Why do you say you guess?
Just Sundays, you know.
Sundays bad days for you?
Well, looking forward for the week. Yeah, well, what can I say?
All right, fair enough.
Anyways. So, you can go ahead and ask your question, then I don't have anything to add, I think.
All right. Okay. Question number 1. What do you think about the tabletop wargaming hobby right now? In the modern day, like,
Right.
what do you think the climate's like?
Right now, in general, I think nothing much has changed. There are some things that are different in regards to 3D printing and like, which I'm gonna mention later. But in general, I think people who've done tabletop gaming will continue to do tabletop gaming, regardless of whether they're playing BattleTech or Warhammer or whatever. The group of people that are playing the tabletop are gonna remain playing tabletop, and nothing's gonna shift that.
Right.
In terms of Warhammer, there is a bit of a difference, I guess, because I think the way that Warhammer became popular is some of the reason why it's in a certain state right now. Because as it started, people who first came into Warhammer, I think, was the people that saw the miniatures. So they started with miniatures, and then they learned about the lore, as far as I know in general. But nowadays, people are learning about the lore first, and then they're learning about the miniatures later. So the fact that the cause and the effect are reversed may be why people are seeing this change in Warhammer and why the communities are so turmoiled right now. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this question. It's just Warhammer is in a unique case, let's say, which is different than most other tabletops, at least at the moment.
All right, fair response. Okay. All right, so question number 2. Where do you see the hobby going, positively or negatively, into the future?
With the general hobby, I think people would see its popularization rising, especially if more of the franchises go digital. Because I think this is one of the things that we haven't seen yet. Like how D&D went. Right now, I think most of the D&D players are playing through some sort of digital platform. And there is...
Yeah, like Tabletop Simulator and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. So I think there's going to be a huge rise in people playing BattleTech or whatever other tabletop game digitally once the developers see that it is a huge market, or once people start actually investing in that.
Would you say that even factoring in that a massive chunk of people play Warhammer, they play Warhammer, they play 40k, they play Age of Sigmar, the Lord of the Rings tabletop war game, BattleTech. A huge portion of the hobby is collecting, assembling, and painting the physical minis. But that's a whole... many people would factor that in as a whole third of the hobby, in fact.
Maybe, but the thing with...
I wouldn't say it's a maybe. Hobby, I'd say it is a fact. Like, that is massive draw.
It is a massive part. However, it's a massive part because people have not yet gotten hooked into the hobby that much. And I think there is a reason with, let's say, for example, Warhammer. People have seen the Warhammer lore, and it's becoming more and more popular, especially with the new miniseries or studies and stuff like that. And there's a lot of increase in people playing tabletop. However, tabletop is more community-based. And I think that if you have the community for a certain thing, it doesn't matter if you have Warhammer, if you have other games, you're going to find people to play tabletop with. But that would not remain the main part of the hobby if there is a possibility of going digital. Because you need to set up time, you need to set up friends, you need to have connections in the room and many other things in order to play tabletop. That's why most of the people who are not into the miniatures are staying away from the most of the communities, because they just enjoy the hobby as from lore perspective and the universe. But if they go into the more community-based stuff, there are going to be a lot of talk about miniatures that they are not comfortable with because they don't do that stuff. So they're just gonna stay silent. I think there's a sort of a silent majority in that thing, where people who play tabletop see other people who play tabletop and think they're the majority of the fan base because they're the only people that they're interacting with. And I think there's a lot of people that know about Warhammer, that like Warhammer, but don't want to talk about Warhammer because half of the people that they see talking usually about Warhammer are talking about miniatures.
Yeah, because that's a massive part of the hobby, like I said. I don't know if I agree it's a silent majority of people that just want to play the game and don't want to, or are just fans of the lore and don't want to engage in painting minis or not. Like, from my interaction...
Right now, no. I think in the future that would be the case.
In the near future, in the near future, I disagree. In the long future, yes, I agree that'll happen. Lots of things are very digital focused. Things are going to be pushed for that. When we've already seen the decent amount of success with Warhammer games being played on Tabletop Simulator, there's definitely there's definitely an audience for digital Warhammer games, but for my experience with the hobby currently, and in terms of what I think is going to happen in the short term, I think most people in the community even now are still very attached to the physical minis, into painting your own army, putting that investment and that time into them, and then playing with them 1-to-1, even with the difficulty and the struggle of finding time to set up a tournament, or let alone participate in one, or getting your friends together and going to each other's houses and playing. There is a challenge with that, undeniably. But I would certainly make the point that despite that, the game has survived over 40 years.
I mean, that's no question with that, and I'm sure it's going to survive because it's hard to destroy that.
Yeah.
Once you have people to play with, you're going to play with regardless of what the company does. That's for sure. But as we have more people coming in the hobby, I think when you said earlier the whole 3 parts of the hobby: the miniature collecting and painting, the actual tournaments, and the lore. I think each of these 3 interact with the others, even if you only like one of them. Let's say I am more of a lore guy. I like the story, I like the characters, but I don't really collect miniatures because there is no reason for me to collect. There's no one to play with, at least as far as I know. And I don't see the enjoyment in just painting things to stay on my shelf, especially at that price that they're showing right now. But when I go into the lore is created and not created, but it is informed by the miniature sales. Because when GW sees the miniatures, when they want to sell a new miniature, they're gonna fix the lore, they're gonna tweak it in a way so that they can ensure that more miniatures are put on the shelves, let's say. So one interacts with the other, and even if you have people with only one of these 3 lines, they're going to see that other people who have nothing to do with them are changing their hobby in a way that they maybe not agreeing with. So that's why there's actually the whole turmoil with GW, I think, at the moment. Because there are different people with different interests, and they're approaching the thing from different points of view.
Well, that's certainly a part of it, but it comes from a lot of avenues. I'd say that with the turmoil and trouble GW are in, I'd say the biggest factor is their own poor decision makings, like in pricing hikes. Price hikes are a big influence on people's issues right now, no matter what aspect of the hobby you're approaching it from. The price hikes of miniatures, the price hikes of paint, the unequal treatment of those price hikes depending on your region. Also, the way they react and respond to the community, the way they're very confrontational with the community. I'd say GW's general behavior is the biggest factor in a lot of the turmoil. The second biggest factor I would certainly point out would be, I'd say it's the second biggest, is the ideological invasion the hobby is currently undergoing. Where a lot of ideologues and activists and political activists are claiming to be fans and then jumping on a soapbox and immediately demanding changes to fit their ideological or socio-political point of views. Like that's been a major problem. Those would be the 2 biggest factors. I'd say the growing pains and confrontation bred from people joining the hobby from different angles, as you espoused. I do think that is causing issues, but I don't think it's causing more turmoil, let's say, than the other 2 samples I just gave. I think those are causing way more problems.
Actually, I have a theory about the GW thing, that why they're acting like that, but I'm gonna go into the third question when we reach that.
All right, is it tinfoil hat, or is there like?
Actually, I have it's not a tinfoil hat. It's more like trying to explain to myself why would someone do that. If I am in their place, why would I do this? Trying to reach an explanation from that. So I'll let you decide.
Okay. I guess we'll move on to question number 3 then. How do you see the hobby evolving negatively or... sorry about that, I already asked that. How do you see 3D printing affecting the hobby currently and into the future?
Well, currently, I think that there's going to be a bigger and bigger impact in terms of miniatures and the whole situation right now. But there is a controversial opinion from me that in the future there's going to be little difference, at least from my point of view, because as I think as people go digital, and if people go digital actually, the 3D printing is going to be left in the background, because there's going to be, for each 3D printing enthusiast or person who owns a 3D printer, there's going to be 1,000 people who just buy a $60 entry into the virtual sphere. It's just so easy and so convenient to enter that people are not going to spend time to buy a 3D printer, learn how to use it, and print their miniatures. They're just going to jump in digital. So the market's going to increase, so it's not going to really be influenced by the 3D.
All right, so your prediction is based on the predication of there being a more of an audience interested in the digital as opposed to traditional.
Well, actually, that's actually going into my theory that first, GW is reacting to 3D printing in such a way, not because they're afraid that 3D printing is going to be a competitor in terms of miniature creation. I think they don't want to sell their models because they want to have their models be sold into a digital form. Because once they let them go, once they start giving them for 3D printing, then they cannot limit them in some sort. Let's say if they want to create a tabletop simulator 3D models for a tabletop simulator game, they can go and actually trademark this model. And if they own this trademark, if they haven't sold it anywhere, then they can go and say, this is ours. We haven't given it to anyone. So we can actually have
that doesn't make sense, because that doesn't make sense, though.
Why?
Because they can trademark it now and still sell the STLs. They can still do that. I mean, that doesn't work, logically speaking.
Well, the thing is,
because what you just said is based on if in the law they couldn't trademark or couldn't copyright or couldn't put a stamp of "this is ours" on a model or a design, which they've already done. They don't like the basis of that is if they can only do that if they make a video game. That's not how that works.
No. I mean, if they start producing 3D versions of virtual versions of the miniatures.
Yeah, but they can do that right now and copyright it and still sell the STLs and still own the copyright. Like that's what One Page Rules does. Don't you know that?
No, actually, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I can't. Okay. When I downloaded a One Page Rules STL, I'm not legally allowed to give that to people or sell it to people.
Okay, so that changes. Okay, so
because they own the copyright of that design. I can make a similar design, but it has to be different, or legally I'm in hot water.
Okay, so in that case, my opinion of 3D printing changes, and I think that it's just because they are not hip with the modern times. Let's just say.
Yeah.
They have older thinking, and that's why I think they're so draconian with the 3D printers.
Okay.
Another thing I was thinking that, you know how the whole Warhammer Plus was created?
Yes.
And they are starting to go more for like videos and lore, and they're trying to widen the appeal of Warhammer. I believe, at least from what I can see in the market, is that the new people that came in convinced the old guard that is still thinking that people go to brick and mortar shops and shop their miniatures, and that's the only way they can get it. I think the new people convinced the older guard that they can popularize Warhammer by just going into these new and hip avenues, and they view the people that are buying the miniatures and the people that are actually the fans, the original fans, they view them only as the cash cows, the whales that they're always going to be there, and they can just, they just get all the money they can from you, and then if you leave, they can just go into their new avenue, because maybe in the future they'll stop caring about miniatures as much if the new people get their way, because miniatures are, they are a lucrative market, but they are not a scalable market, not as much as other avenues, and I think that's their strategy right now. That's why they're pushing so much of intellectual property, the non-disclosure agreement, stuff like that, because they want to spread in that direction, and they're just trying to squeeze as much money as they can from the normal customers. That's why we see also the price hikes from there, because they bet if we increase the price, maybe people will buy it, then we'll get more money. If people don't buy it, then we'll see what we can do. But let's just try and get more money from them. It might work. It worked in the past.
It's an interesting take.
It's just there are people who still think that brick and mortar shops and physical miniatures are the only way they can sell Warhammer, which are the original people that created the hobby.
Oh, and I
then
would.
there are the new managers that come from Hasbro and stuff.
I would point out something to you. One thing I don't know if you've considered this. Do you realize that they've kind of already done what you're posing, and with the whole digital part of it?
Not to the scale that we want.
No, they haven't done a 1-to-1 digital variation of playing tabletop Warhammer. But what they have done is they've released quite a few video games that do very similar. I mean, when you look at Necromunda Hired Gun, that is very comparable to the tabletop variation of that same video game. Or I guess since the tabletop game came first, the video game is very comparable to the tabletop variant. Battle Sector, which recently came out, that is a strategy game. It's turn-based, and you move the units on a grid system, which you could say is supplementary to the inches movement you have in a traditional 40k game. It's in subtle differences that definitely make it not a 1-to-1, but they've already kind of made moves to make it a digital format, yet there's still this hyper focus they've had on the physical minis. So I think that they're just trying to control both markets. I don't think they're trying to switch to one or the other.
Well, they are trying to control both markets, but I think there are different parts of the company that are aiming for different things. And the older people that are still there have more influence, and that's why they are actually holding on to the physical minis. I think the newer people that are coming are the ones that are pushing for more digital. And that's why it's a bit strange when GW just starts flip-flopping around on different issues, at least from what I saw. I think there are some struggles inside the company that some people are pushing for different things, and if one wins, you get one product. If another one wins, you get a different product, depending on the situation, how it goes. And also with the games that they're producing, if I remember correctly, they used to just give up their license to anyone who asked.
Pretty much.
So
that's kind of what they're doing right now.
Well, yes, and I think this is because the people that are actually responsible for giving the license, they are not really thinking about the license as from a digital standpoint. They're just, popularity, like the older ways, like, oh, we're just gonna release it for popularity's sake, just do whatever. And then there are some people that doesn't have the influence to make decisions, but they're pushing for more control of these things. And I think that if Warhammer Plus was a success, they would have gone later on to create a game studio of their own. I think that was going to be the next step of their plan. But now I'm not sure that they're going to even attempt that.
And figuring out what GW is going to attempt next is kind of like playing Russian roulette.
Yeah.
This has been an interesting conversation. But yeah, interesting.
Also, just to note, that's from a viewpoint of a person who has nothing to do with the minis. I don't follow them. I don't read news of them. I only follow the GW news, like what the company does, the lore, and some community discussions, like the different dramas and stuff in the community. So I'm coming from an outsider perspective, almost. Just for other people to know what the situation is.
Yeah, I get that. Well, I guess all I have to say is, generally, I disagree with elements of what you said, but I agree with some of this. At the very least, I agree with the sentiment of some of the things you're saying. Do I think they're gonna go full digital at any point? Not soon, relatively speaking. They have already made strides, like you see it in the video games, like with Battle Sector and again Necromunda, not Hired Gun, Under Hive Wars. You see them starting to kind of implement not a 1-for-1, but a very similar digital video game system to their tabletop game. But with their company having such a massive profit margin coming from the toys, like the miniatures, that's what they are, and I kind of just want to like leave you with this thought, because I do kind of have to pull someone out, because we still got 2 other people waiting. I just kind of want to leave you with this thought, but keep in mind, though this is a joke, you've seen Spaceballs, right?
Yeah.
And you know how there's a scene where they reference merchandising, where the real money of the movie is made. And you do know that with the recent Star Wars films, there was a massive profit, snipe they took when their toys and stuff weren't selling, but the movies did quote-unquote well. But that was still considered an objective failure because their toys and stuff began to see a massive dip in sales.
Yes.
What I want to leave you with is, don't underestimate the core value of a physical product, because that is where the real money is often made, even to this day, and we're supposed to be in the modern peak of digital sales and digital products. I just want to leave you with that thought. Thanks so much for Tang for.
Let me just say something on that point. Just one thing.
All right, go ahead.
I really hope we don't see Space Marine chibis anytime soon. That's the only thing I'm gonna live with.
I don't disagree. We already have the Funko Pop thing, I think.
Yeah.
So
that's not no. Okay then. So that's it for me.
All right. Thank you, Tang, for the conversation, man. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, have a good one, man.
Have a good one.
Crap. Who's been there longer? Tech Priest or Calcul? Tech Priest. Fuck. Fucking. Tech Priest. All right, Tech Priest. What's up, man? Hello. Hello. Okay. Calcul, what's up, man?
Birdie birdie. Hello.
Yeah, there you are.
Yes.
How you doing? How you doing this day?
Oh, it's been a hell of a week.
It has.
Indeed.
You're okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Good. Yeah. All right. So before we get into the 3 questions, got any general statements or questions to start off?
Not that I can think of.
All right. Alrighty. All right. So I guess we'll just get into the questions. So question number 1. What do you think of the modern climate and the modern state of tabletop wargaming? And you can specify it down to 40k / Age of Sigmar, if you like.
Overall, as in all war games, I think we're doing well. I think it's growing. Tabletop gaming is a growing phenomenon. But specifically Warhammer and Games Workshop stuff is not in decline per se, but it's it's reaching a point where it's starting to hit a snag. I mean, any experienced Warhammer enthusiasts, not me, I haven't been around for long, but other people who I know, they've been saying, you know, everyone knows that Games Workshop has never been a good company.
Correct.
But
Never.
recently they've been worse than they usually are, and that's saying something.
Yeah, I will say I think I touched on this with Tang, if not Tang, the person before him. But as I said before, the reason I don't think it's more than usual. I think they're being noticed for it more. I think that's one of the quote unquote positives that's come with the growth is because the community's grown so much. I think we have more eyes and therefore more content creators slash notable figures in the community that have also cropped up, and I think with that has come a lot of exposure on Games Workshop's bad behaviors and bad attitude. Who knows? Maybe objectively speaking, it is worse. But I think a part of it is there's more eyes on it. So I think more people are just catching the bad behavior. So we think it's more, but I think it's the same. I think it's the same or maybe slightly more. But we're just recognizing it more.
I mean, I think I didn't necessarily say that it was worse. I just yeah, well, yeah, I think you do have a point. I do suppose, yes, yeah. No, you are right, but huh. I think Games Workshop has failed, much like previous people have talked about. They failed to recognize the current changes in the hobby and the market. 3D printing, obviously, being probably the most notable. But, well, honestly, I've grown less interested in Warhammer over time, and I'm growing more interested in games like Bolt Action and through Beyond the Gates of Antares, like more, not niche, I guess, but yeah, more niche stuff, really.
I would say definitely more niche than Warhammer is, but yeah, like I said, these questions can relate and do relate to the hobby as a whole, not just GW stuff. So I'm curious, what do you think of Bolt Action?
I haven't started it yet. I have a plan, and Warlord Games recently released a new game of system that I'm like, this is all I've ever wanted from a campaign system. It's everything.
Oh, nice.
It's perfect. But yeah, I want to get into it. Just I'm so disjointed and unable to focus that I really just haven't gotten into it yet. Also, of course, it costs money, so yes. But yes. Other hobbies as well. I mean, I never really liked Infinity, but let's see. I know a lot of people who played it. Honestly, it's beyond like Warhammer and its different variants. I'm pretty sure Infinity is the game I've seen most people play, so to speak.
I haven't tried Infinity much, but
I've only seen it around.
It's elusive.
Yes.
All right. So generally, you think things are if we don't factor in GW or GW related games too much, you'd say tabletop wargaming as a whole, though outside of that's pretty good.
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I do agree with that. I'd say that when it comes to if we look at Bolt Action, look at BattleTech, we look at we also look at up and coming. We look at One Page Rules. One Page Rules, I think, is a great example of tabletop wargaming that's happening outside of GW that's growing really, really well and really fast, and is also implementing the latest technology. I'd say One Page Rules is like the young man on the block, whereas GW is that old codger who's like, enough, man!
Yes.
It's like, well, fuck you, old man. Captain Boost with the super chat, man. Thank you. Bolt Action isn't bad. I like Flames of War's Team Yankee more.
I think that's a smaller scale game, and I'm really want to stay in the 40k
more
scale
gil for the
stuff
cause.
still. So, but I mean, it looks cool.
I don't know
It is-
anything about that particular game.
Huh?
I was just about to say I don't know anything about that particular game that he's referencing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's basically just it's another war game set in the Second World War. It's just smaller scale than Bolt Action.
Ah, okay.
Bolt Action is pretty much like Warhammer 40k if it was set in, well, the World War Second one, of course. Sad that they don't have a First World War version. Oh well.
There'd be a lot of trench warfare.
More
Oh
gil
god,
for
that
the
would be a
cause.
nightmare.
Ball, thank you for the super chat, man. Thank you. The real old man has arrived. Welcome, old man. Welcome. You've missed 3 hours of quite a lot of good conversation. It's been a very good day, I gotta say, with the interaction. All right, so we established your thoughts on the modern. All right, question number 2. Where do you see the tabletop wargaming hobby going into the future? Like cons and pros.
Where do I see it going on that? I'm pretty sure that everything I'm about to say has been said here before, but 3D printing, what's it called? More decentralized gaming, I'd say. Like, not as in the places you're playing it in, although that kind of factors into with things like Tabletop Simulator and whatnot, but like the production and distribution of war gaming stuff will be more decentralized because of things like 3D printers and, well, the fact that anyone can make rules nowadays because everyone has access to tools that allow you to do precisely that.
Yeah,
And of course, the fact you can easily get a hold of things to, quote, inspire you. In other words, things you can pretty much just rip off for free. I mean, well, yes, yeah. No, that's
I choose
pretty
to
much...
take the inspired by route, but yes, that's also a thing. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I'd say I've agreed with that sentiment, and most people have said it. 3D printing is a pretty big part of the future, and I do agree very much that the decentralization is coming. Like, we're gonna see a lot more one-page rules-esque things coming up where people sell STLs and also sell rules to the games, and they do it all that side of it digitally, but the game is still played in physical hobby stores. I am curious. I don't really have any predictions because I have no idea how this is going to happen, but I'm curious to see how hobby stores will handle that decentralization, because hobby stores, a huge part of it is, yeah, they do host the games and stuff like that, but they also sell the merchandise. So I wonder how hobby stores are going to be able to handle it. I actually
have sort of a plan.
Well, can I say mine real quick, just in case it's the same?
You can.
Yeah, my idea was if GW and those kinds of things kind of go downhill, they can start selling 3D printers and resin and filament for printers and stuff like that as kind of like a supplement to that to the hobbyists, and then still host the games and stuff.
It's yeah, I suppose they could. My idea is basically that you, instead of providing the source of the stuff itself, or, well, the miniatures at the ready, you instead provide, well, the 3D printers, because not everyone has the money to buy one. So my idea is basically buy 3D printers, let pretty much anyone who wants to pay you a small fee use them, and, well, so they can print out whatever the hell they want. Doesn't even have to be Warhammer stuff. Doesn't even have to be tabletop. Just stuff.
Yeah, actually, that's a pretty good idea for hobby stores. They could buy 3D printers, have a small shop with them in the back, and kind of like you order a pizza, you can call them up and say, "Hey, can I order?" Obviously, I can't use GW models, but let's say, "Hey, can I order? I see on your catalog this Saurian knight in heavy armor that's also half dragon. Can I order this model?" And maybe they have different variants, so they ask you, "Oh which variant would you like?" And then you tell them the variant, and then they give you the option of, "All right, do you want it pre-assembled all the way to painted. If it's all pre-assembled all the way to painted, we're gonna need 1 week. If you just want the components unassembled and just off this just UV cured and washed, that's gonna be we're gonna need 8 hours, 9 hours, whatever it's gonna take. And then you just go pick it up and stuff like that. Like, you can do orders and stuff like that. And I think that is actually a very good supplemental idea. I agree with that. That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
That could really evolve how hobby stores work.
Yes.
Oh, that's a pretty cool idea. All right. So that's all 3 questions. Got anything else you'd like to say before I try and drag Tech Priest in again?
No. I have nothing more to say, really. I can't come up with anything at the time. It's a little late.
Nah, I get you. All right, thank you for coming on, Kill. It's always a pleasure to have you, my friend.
No problem. Arrivederci, senor.
Have a good one. All right, Tech Priest. You there? Tech Priest, my man, you there? You're there. Please tell me you're there. Alright, we'll give him just a minute. Oh damn, we went over my predicted for time quite a bit. Yeah, that's alright, that's fine. Okay, so damn, it's not okay. Alright. Alright, so Tech Priest is not answering. So I'm gonna call it there, guys. I gotta get some food. I haven't eaten much today. But this was a great conversation. I absolutely adored the conversations that occurred today. I love the people who came on. It was awesome. We had quite a bit of interaction. I mean, massive appreciation to everybody. It was awesome. I had a great time, and we'll do it again. We'll do a similar. I'll try and do an open mic style thing in the future for something else. It won't be the most common kind of stream I do, because there's only so many of these you can do. But it was great conversation. I enjoyed it, and it's definitely something I'll do again in the future. Probably, I don't know, in a couple months maybe we'll come up with another open mic thing that'll be a nice big convo, a nice big conversation back and forth with everybody. But otherwise, have an amazing day, everybody. Thank you for the conversations, as always. And for anyone who watches the VOD, feel free to leave a comment. What's your thoughts? Before you all leave, please leave a like. And, yeah, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Let's get you guys there. Bye-bye.